before the finals. We gave them snacks, pencils, and water, and just a friend to be there because tough times with finals. And then we also have our school spirit. We wouldn't be ASB without our basic school spirit. As you can see, there is our school spirit. It was our first football game where we had red, white, and blue. And we just really find school spirit to be really welcoming and more involvement with the students. We feel that it is just a good way for the students to have fun in such a stressful environment that it is sometimes could be. And it's just a great way to get some stress out and dress up as crazy as you can. And then our most important thing is student involvement. We want to make sure that students can be involved in many different activities we have after school, such as API, PSU, Cooking Club, Adventure Club, all those different type of clubs we have at Oldie. We want to make sure that there's anything for anyone, that you can try new things, be who you are, show your student pride, just show who yourself, show who you are within your school. Thank you.
And just what JJ said about our school spirit, we really like that the students engage in our student spirit and kind of have a little thing going on at the beginning of the year. Our ASB created these crew-necks, Olympic crew-necks, and saying was only $20. There's a lot of it. Then we had our freshman info night. I thought it was really successful, and ASB, we gave out tours and asked those teachers set up tables just to be more open for students and families and welcoming to them to look for more courses. And then we had our homecoming spirit week. I thought it was a blast. We had bring anything as a backpack day. Saw some shopping carts. Don't know if that was legal. But it was really successful though. Loved it. We had our Ghost of Musical too. Really amazing. I watched it. You did too? Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. Also, just our whole art department is fantastic, and Mr. McFigure and Mr. Williams, just amazing teachers. And then the last thing we have is the Unspoken Truth, the History Traveling Museum. I was able, and a lot of members that are here today, that we were able to experience it too with Bahari students and CK students. It was really educational for students of color, and yeah, that's it.
So what we're doing next at Olympic High School, our prom is coming up. We are really focusing on setting it up to be very formal, very nice. We have our juniors set it up. We are holding it at the Bremerton Convention Center. We thought it was a pretty good place to go. It's open, it's on the water, it's very nice, and we're excited for it. Our next fundraiser for the seniors is Soka Senior, and we have prizes for them. If anyone is the dunk, I bet you AJ is excited. Just today we had High Presidents, which is always a fun thing at lunches. Everyone always loves it. It's always a good time with High Presidents. Oli night, our last Oli night, it wasn't as successful, we're gonna be honest. But for our next one, we're gonna grow. We're gonna learn what we can do better next time. More games. This time we'll have the gym open. We can have we'll have more games included, which a lot of people are looking forward to. And we didn't have it. It's all right. We're gonna learn. We're gonna move on, and the next Oli night will be a lot more successful. And then moving up, assembly. That's been a tradition. Where the seniors, it's just our normal pep assembly. The seniors will leave. Then the juniors will then take their spot on our bleachers, where they usually are in their prep assembly. And then sophomores take the junior spots, and then freshmen will take the sophomore spot. Thank you.
Okay, before we close off the presentation, I'd like to read out Mr. Wilson's mission statement, which is Olympic High School is a community where everyone belongs. We aim to develop knowledgeable students with strong character, confidence, and motivation to be contributing citizens. While being supported and engaged in relevant and rigorous courses, every Olympic High School student will be prepared for post-high school success for formulating an active plan for college or career pathway. Although I'm a senior, I'm pretty excited to see what Olympic does. Like, I'm so excited. I'm sure that the upcoming freshmen and our current underclassmen will love to see what Olympic does.
Any questions?
It's like, well done. Dr. Prince looked at me again, you're doing a slide about freshmen, in Bonite. And I have twins who will be freshmen at Ole next year, and they came home, my husband came home glowing from that freshman in Bonite. So, like, as a parent, I thank you. I'm so happy to hear that. And I bragged about it at my last board meeting. So just like, thank you. So they felt your energy and your positivity and I'm hoping that all the other freshmen who were there did also, those families, but mine did. So thank you for your efforts in that. And just, yes, you can feel your guys' excitement. And thank you for being honest about, the last Ole night wasn't as successful as you'd hoped. And that's all we can ask, right? Is that we learn and we try to do better. That's what we're doing also. We're trying to learn from, something that doesn't go how we wanted it to, but we learn and we do better than the next time. So I appreciate that, and you guys awesome.
Anybody else want?
I had a very similar comment to Denise. Great presentation. I love hearing about the successes and the stumbling blocks. That's excellent adult skill that you are developing now and recognizing where things, may have gone askew and how you're going to work on that. So fantastic job, and thank you for sharing the success and the stumbling blocks.
I really applaud the welcome and seeing that is like amazing part of it, because many students, they just maybe sit in the corner and they're not engaged. But I can tell by all of your spirit that y'all will force that, like, hey, come over here, and to know that you're there for and supporting that is so important that you're doing it to your fellow students. So just look forward for everything that you guys are doing, and please keep it up. Your spirit resonates with it, definitely. And I know I'm definitely trying to go to the moving up one, so I'll get the date and try to be there for that.
I just am glowing with pride. These are our future leaders, adults in the room, and just gives such hope. And we were, three of us, Director Tracy and Director Green and myself, we were at Ole today. And your principal, Wilson, said, every time, Dr. Prince, you come to Ole, we have some sort of spirit going on. And so I know that, I don't know whether it was t-shirt, I'm not sure what it was, polo, I know, what was today?
White.
Oh, I was writing, yeah, but you guys weren't even alive. Britney Spears was maybe, yeah, we were listening to Britney Spears, and I passed on that one. We listened to Student Voice with a Pulse, and they represented you well as a community of learners, a community of inclusion, and how important it is at Ole that everyone feels they belong. And you started off with that in your presentation as well, and you could feel it when I walked through the doors of Ole. You as students always greet with a smile. You do value everyone feeling welcome. And so I just want you to know, as an adult and a superintendent, I'm just really proud of the climate that you are developing and you expect as students, because that's what makes the change for sure. So thank you for your energy, and very excited for Ole, and very excited for you and your future as you venture out. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have the progress to graduation. Ms. Thorough. I know, right? Thank you.
That was such a good job.
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening. It is after spring break. That means round one of progress to graduation. Very exciting time. Spring is in the air, sun is in the air, and graduation. So we'll go forward here. Or just a quick reminder, what's it take to earn a diploma? 24 credits, a high school and beyond plan, and complete a graduation pathway. And so I always, at this time of the year, we'd like to give you just a snapshot. Where's the senior class in terms of credits? And I kind of phrase this in terms of, are they in striking distance? They're all, majority of seniors have 6 classes, so they could earn 3 credits this term. So we do a quick run on how are seniors at 21 credits. And you can see there, that's all very positive. The majority of the senior class, their traditional high schools are all within striking distance. We go to the next slide, and we always will bring to you by race and ethnicity, just some breakdown there. So may not graduate, this slide here is just due to credits. So you can see some numbers there. What you don't see is, and all of these numbers are a lot of staff, families too, because you have teenagers that helping students get across the finish line. So they're counselors, staff, and administrators, and support staff. They're all helping students on this slide and the other numbers to make it to June to walk across the stage. So there are plans in place. So that right there, those numbers are more just a mathematical equation, but we've got lots of plans to help students, plenty of time now. And we know how teenagers are. Sometimes they're scrambling and pulling things together last season. So we're doing that right now. Next slide. In terms of pathways, this has been in play for 3 or 4 years. You can see we currently have 8 pathways. Those of you who have been tracking at the state level, there's a 9th pathway that will come into play next year. So the class needs to complete one of these. Just to give you context, every student that graduated last year completed a pathway. Pathways have not been an obstacle or barrier. You'll see on the waiver slide that we can do a waiver, but that hasn't been necessary for us historically. This part we can take care of. And so this gives you a snapshot of just where that's at. 746 of the cohort have completed a pathway, and you see we've got a couple hundred that's in progress right now. That could be some testing they're doing this spring. It could also be a course they're enrolled in, things like that to get one of these checked. So waivers, and this also hasn't changed the last few years. We've had the local waiver option for a while. And I'm misplacing the year, but at least for the last, I think 3, the one on the right there, the state level emergency waiver has been in play. Students still need to graduate with a minimum of 20 credits. The pathway can be waived. The high school and beyond plan is still a requirement also that everyone has to complete. So the way ahead, like I mentioned, lots of amazing staff in all different roles and families helping students 4th quarter. We do have, I always remind, we have summer options. So you can graduate, so be a class of the cohort of 2023 and graduate in July and August. So every once in a while that happens. And if not, we still have summer options to keep working on accruing and retrieving credit. And we also have enrollment options. We have students that stay with us for a 5th year and happy to support. Graduation ceremonies, very excited we're in the midst of planning those again at home sites, and everybody cross their fingers for good weather, and everyone's excited about that. So I'll be back at the end of June to do kind of where did we land, all of the experience graduations, but I'll bring back the numbers and how our graduates did. Any questions?
And I want to point out that I love the fact you said that parents and the teachers are working together to do that. Neighbor of mine was saying that one of our children, they get ready to graduate, but it's for some reason it's just a lot. But how the teacher just reached out to her and gave us some tools, like, hey, let's do this to get along with. So I really appreciate that, because I think that's critical, because a lot of times parents are trying to figure it out too. So to hear that, I want to thank you for bringing that connection up. Yeah, right. All right, thank you so much. Thank you. All right, our next item is extracurricular update. Standings.
Good evening, thank you for having me. We are going to dive into the winter update, over athletics. So just real quick, we always start going over our athletic participation numbers. You can see here we have about 380 high school student athletes that participated in winter sports. The numbers are broken down there for you by each school. One thing I want to point out, I pointed this out in the fall as well. We actually are continuing to see an increase in participation numbers. This winter, we had an additional 56 high school student athletes participate, which is in line with where our fall participation numbers were this year as well from last year. And we're right back to where we were pre-pandemic numbers. You have additional information in your packet there for you, but you can see that in 2019 and 20, we had about 381 high school athletes participating in winter sports. All right, some highlights for you guys. CK High School, their girls basketball team finished 4th in the league this year, and they also qualified for districts and advanced out of districts and moved on to regionals. Boys swim qualified 2 relay teams in the 200 and 400 relays for state. Bowling went undefeated in league, finished 2nd in districts and 5th in state. We had 5 wrestlers qualify for state, and Carter Chadwick was named the WSWCA, which is the Washington State Wrestling Coaches Association Academic State Champ. So great success this winter for CK High School. Clahowya, their bowling team won the Academic State Championship this year. And I just want to note that this is Clahowya Bowling, this is their award. They have been claiming the state academic championship award since 2017-18, every year since then. And they also won this title with a team GPA of 3.69, and they finished 4th in the state. Lucy Mitchell finished 2nd overall in the state bowling tournament, and Haley Johnson finished 6th overall. They also sent 9 wrestlers to state, and Logan Wallace placed 4th at state. All right, Olympic High School. They had a total of 4 wrestlers qualifying for state, and you can see here a picture of Allie there holding up a number 1. You guys remember last year we celebrated Allie Templeton, who finished 2nd at state. Well, she came back this year and she won the state championship for the girls 1A, 2A, 120-pound weight class. Let's see, both the boys and girls basketball teams qualified for districts this year, and the girls advanced to the 2nd round of district. They also had 1 bowler qualify for state, and they sent 13 boy swimmers to state. This is something that I'm highlighting this year, and I stuck this slide in our fall, and I really wanted to bring more attention to it. You will see it in my June report as well. But we are educational-based athletics. Our student athletes are students first and foremost. So it's really important to me to acknowledge the success that our athletes are having in the classroom. So out of our winter programs, we had 10 winter programs that were awarded the Distinguished Team Award, meaning they had an average team GPA of 3.0 to 3.49. We had 4 Outstanding Team Awards, so teams that average GPA of 3.5 to a 4.0. And then, of course, that 1 academic state championship, which was Clahowya. So 15 total scholastic awards this winter for our high school team. All right, middle school athletics. This is combined data for winter 1 and 2 season. Their total participation came in at 468 student athletes. Again, same trend. This is an increase of about 35 athletes from last year's winter data. And same along with, we saw these same results in the fall. We're just continuing to trend up, and we're back to where we were in our pre-COVID numbers. And again, you have that additional data in your packet. And these are just some photos from CK Middle School and Ridgetop in the different sports and participation numbers. And then we have another slide there with Fairview and Clahowya. All right, so Pee Wee and community connection. This is something that we're trying to emphasize in the athletic world, especially at the high school level. Coming out of COVID, going from having no fans in our sporting events, whether they were in the gym or outdoors, and now trying to really enhance and connect with PB in the community. So we have 3 different photos here, just to give you some examples. On the far left, you can see at CK High School during a football game, they had a youth PB night there. You can see the PB players lined up. Up top at Clahalia, you can see there was a mini cheer camp they had, and I believe they had over 100 youth cheerleaders sign up for that camp. And then down below, this is a picture of the Ole basketball camp they had over winter break. As I mentioned, these are just some of the examples. Some other examples, there's been baseball and softball clinics that were held over spring break, summer volleyball and basketball camps, youth nights at basketball and football games. We've even had some programs take it as far as inviting our youth teams in to watch practices. So our coaches have really done a great job of trying to connect with our PB and our community, and we're looking forward to continue to enhance these connections that we're making with them. Okay, when I was here last time, I had talked about upcoming spring coach training. We are really trying to give our coaches more in-house training. That was something that we had heard back from our coaches when we provided our first in-person coach training in August. So we provided another opportunity this spring. We had 30 coaches join us for that training this spring. And at the training, we had a guest speaker, the head football coach from PLU, spoke around the importance of continuity within programs, as well as within the coaching staff. We offered 6 breakout sessions at that training for coaches. Topics varied anywhere from ASD fundraising to the importance of preseason meetings. We're going to continue to expand next year on the opportunities that we're offering, not only in person, but looking at adding some online training options for our coaches as well. And we're taking feedback. We're receiving feedback not only from the August training, but we've also been getting feedback from the March. And I wanted to share a couple of those comments from coaches. I enjoyed having coaches from everywhere involved. It was nice to hear from coaches all over the district and what they're doing for their athletes. All of the presenters and information was amazing. It was beneficial having small groups in each breakout room to be able to have conversations, not only with presenters, but other coaches as well. I would like to see some sort of alignment between middle and high school. It would be nice to hear what the high school coaches are wanting their athletes to do. At the middle school level, we focus on basic skills, but if we can better prepare for high school sport, maybe our programs can improve. So we're continuing to hear like that networking, connecting with other districts or other coaches in our district, is really important and valuable to them. So we're going to continue to kind of feed off of that and see how we can continue to create opportunities for them to network and really connect with their middle school counterparts. This slide is really a thank you to our school board. I wanted to take the time to thank you guys for your support and acknowledge all the work that we've done at the Olympic Aquatic Center. And we also couldn't do it without Whitney Dodd, who's our current pool coordinator. She's been extremely committed and hardworking, and she's helped us lead in reopening our pool. Because if you remember, it was closed during construction and part of COVID. And so it's been a really big lift. And I just quickly wanted to tell you a few of the things that we have done during that time. A new pool circulation pump has been installed, a helper pump, chem controller system, a flow meter, and almost the entire facility has been repainted. We have new signs and new school banners hanging in the facility. We have new swim lesson program curriculum, and we've updated our swim lesson. It's now all available online for registration. And we've added an intro to swim team program, which is really targeting that middle school age student, so that we can try to help build our high school swim programs as well. And then also we're currently seeing an increase in our rentals. And right now we have rentals anywhere from the Special Olympics program to scuba diving to kayaking. We've hosted rather large club swim meets. So we're really excited about the work that's being done at the pools. And I would love to give you guys a tour if you have time and want to take me up on that offer. I would love to get you out there and show you our revamped facility. So thank you again for all of your support.
Thank you. Anybody? I want to say that the PV connection, you and I talked about this. I love it because what I had said at one of the association's events, small event, that they become our children, you know, so we want to inherit them. So it's always good to make that connection there. And I think that there's more that we can do with our peewees as far as programs that we have that can offer our students to work with the peewees as well, and making those connections. So I'm glad that that's happening in the space that it is. And then I think the coaches, I sound like my great friend over there, Eric now, with having a son playing 2 sports and two children play as well, right? So I really, the coach part of it is so important, you know, because my son did not want to play across the country, did not want to run it. And I was like, well, you know, you need to do it. And whatever the coach did over there, I didn't have him bother with it, but he's bought in and he's like, I love it. And then he's like, all right, I got it. He had this, you know, skill. But he's too ashamed, but he looks cute in his outfit. But it's really that connection is what it is, and he and I know it's the coach. You know, it's not just the sport itself. So thanks for that training, because they are the other part of us as parents to say, hey, we got your child. So thank you for that.
I just got they're called uniforms. This is you actually, I guess a while ago I had asked around individuals that wanted to contribute to the upgrade of facilities.
Yeah.
And how we went about doing that. I just hadn't heard anything about that. So what the process was, if people wanted, for example, I think it was the polo at Acknowledgement.
That's because so what
And also some work around the softball fields, where people wanted to contribute, license, folks wanted to contribute services and the like to improve those facilities, and how we went about doing that. On that. So,
and then the conversation that Dr. Fritz and I had was, can there be a way to put together some budgets so we can say, hey, this is what the number is. So this way that is specific to that, so when it comes in, we know that that's the number that we hit. So I think that we had a small conversation in regards to that. I do believe that that's in the works for obviously I'll say that. But that when you said that the last time, I said the same thing. We got to know what that number is. So this way when we say it, we say, hey, this is what it may be at. All right.
Okay, she's still got. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
It's okay.
We got excited.
So obviously right now we have high school spring sports that started at the end of February. They're in full swing. We just are so happy that the sunshine, that big foreign object in the sky has returned, because we are able to get all of our sports up and running. And then middle school sports also are in full swing: cross country, football, volleyball, and cheer. And then my last slide for you is just a reminder that I'll be back in May, and we'll celebrate our state-bound athletes from winter. And then we do have high school participation. Summer participation starts right up at the end of May. So we close out spring, and we have about 2-3 days off, and then we go right into high school summer participation. And then I'll be back in June, and I will do a full year review, and that will include activities and then celebration of our spring athletes. Thank you.
So I talked to the superintendent this afternoon about the possibility of the study session, or part of the study session, moving forward with respect to, I think for the levy, we grouped them up as athletics activities and arts. So sort of a presentation around that with respect to a little bit about budget, a little bit about goals and objectives, and what we're looking to do around that, what the expectation is. Just to bring the board, because we have a lot of new membership on the board, and to bring the community up to speed, kind of the first opportunity to start talking about this kind of things as we move forward.
Yeah, thank you. That's definitely true. And I think that's a great job, because we're going to go to the championships, and I think we're talking about what it's supposed to happen. So
They're coming in. Thank you very
Exactly.
much.
Thank you. You know that when you go somewhere, you're like, yeah, I've won, I understand. All right. So we have legislative report. Take a deep breath.
I need it much briefer this time.
Yeah, that's all relevant.
Exactly.
So the session is over. So I am wrapping up the bills that we have been tracking. So anything that had died in committee by the last time we met is fallen off the report. So we will start with our special ed bills. The Senate bill died in the Senate Rules Committee. The House bill, however, passed the Senate on April 22nd and was signed by the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate on the 23rd. And now we wait for it to be signed by the governor. So as it passed in the houses, it increases the multipliers. For pre-K, it increased from 1.15 to 1.2. For K through 12, for a student that is spending over 80% of their time in a general ed setting, it has increased from 1.0075 to 1.12. For K-12 students that are spending less than 80% of their time in a general ed setting, it has increased from 0.995 to 1.06. So we will take any increase. It wasn't exactly what we were hoping for back in January, but it's a step in the correct direction. The bill also increases the cap from 13.5% to 15%. So for a district that has more than 13.5% of their population receiving special ed services, this is great news because the state will now pay up to that 15% cap. There's also a safety net award change if the student's IEP costs exceed 2.2 times the average per pupil expenditure for a school district of our size. So it's a step in the right direction. There's always next year. No. Yes. Yeah. So free school meals, the House Bill 1238, which was aimed to provide free school meals for all, was signed by the Speaker April 18th, President of the Senate 19th, and now we wait for the governor's signature. That'll be a common thread in some of these. So as it passed, it is a phased-in process. So for next school year, for 2023-2024, schools that have 40% or more of their students eligible for free or reduced meals, they will offer free school meals to the entire school. In 2024-2025 school year, that will change down to 30%. And then beginning in 2024-2025, school districts must implement a breakfast program in each school that is also required to provide school meals. And I believe our schools are already providing breakfast, so that doesn't necessarily apply to us, but it is an important part of the bill.
Just one of this, with that bill, it's those schools that's only K-4.
Oh,
So it's, so, I mean, or, well, so it include all, any, so it's, yeah, so it's our elementary, for us, it's our elementary school, but it would not, that does not apply to our secondary schools. So,
Thank you, please.
it's a small step forward.
Again, a common thread, a step forward, not exactly where we were headed. The transportation bill to provide adequate and predictable student transportation died in the Senate Rules Committee. The Purple Star Award, which creates and it establishes a Purple Star designation to recognize school districts that demonstrate educational and social emotional supports to students of military service members, was signed by the Speaker on the 14th, the President of the Senate on the 17th, and now we wait for the governor. And then the transitional kindergarten bill that we were following has taken so many turns that I'm going to specifically tell Denise that step in if I err. So it just changed so many times. So House Bill 1550, which would provide transitional kindergarten, it did pass. Yeah. So feel free to interject. So as it passed, there is some child eligibility, which we were worried initially about what the child eligibility would be because Central Kitsap is currently providing a fantastic transition to kindergarten program, and one of our worries at the beginning was that this bill would tear apart the program that is very successful in our district and is showing great returns. So that the eligibility in the bill, the children are eligible for the transition to kindergarten program if they turn 5 years old between September 1st of the year of admission to transition to kindergarten, between September 1st and the following August 31st. They do not have access to enroll in a federal or state program providing high-quality early learning services. They do not have access to or have been referred by a licensed early learning program provider. And 3 are either on the wait list for, but not scheduled for enrollment in an ECAP or individually determined pre-screening process or other instruments to have a developmental delay. I wanted to be very specific. I can send it to the, I can send it to you, yeah. So many amendments, so I'm gonna let Denise take it over.
So the good news for this year is, with how it passed, our Jumpstart K program should be good for next year. There is a lot of debate over this. The House and the Senate did not agree on this bill. And so, there's a lot of work. It's gonna come up again next year.
Yeah.
Chair Santos over the House Education Committee is not happy with where it landed at all. And so, it's gonna come up next year. So we have a lot of work to do in the interim. I'm meeting with our legislators to try to, maybe showing our Jumpstart K program and, it's making sure the legislature wants to, by law, they're supposed to have it in, in statute, and I get that. And also what some of the proposals from this, it's gonna hurt students. And so we've got to figure out how, yes, they can put it in statute and not harm students. So,
And I just want to say, I want to thank Dr. Friends, I want to thank Director Tracy and Megan, because that push for us, we let our legislators know, and I heard that when I came to meet, we heard from the district, and so I was like, really, what? And then once y'all told me what, we pushed back heavy on it. I think to give you really a glance at how important this is that middle gap. I mean, I come from the Head Start world where, it's the lower income, but we have that middle gap of people that work, that are making it too much over, that this affects, especially, half of them are Navy, exactly. And I think that's why this was so important. And then when Dr. Princeton and the rest of the board had said, hey, this affects us in our district, our legislators reacted. And I thank you all for stepping up and do that. I can say I did, but I thank you for speaking on that, because it affected the way that they looked at it and said, okay, we didn't know that in that context, even though we had told them this. But so thank you for that. So
Yeah, and that's something we do want to look at going into next year when this, I do believe this will come up every year, until they really have it hammered out. So a couple things that we do want to look at going into future years is that eligibility. Is the eligibility as proposed in the legislature too narrow? Is it missing a group that we are currently serving in our community that do not have options elsewhere? And then also, has the legislature figured out a funding source? Because, historically, it was general ed funding that was being used for this. And so one of the proposals, the initial proposal had no actual funding. It was going to be grant-based. Yeah, grant-based, but they weren't sure where the grants were going to come from. So if they're going to restrict our program through very narrow eligibility and also do not have the funding to carry through the program, all they've done is killed the program. So that, that's going to be something that I am looking at going into next year. And if you guys want to follow along next year, that'd be great too. All right, that's all I got.
no, yes, good job, correct. It's a year-round cycle, so we're in interim and working on, building those relationships with our legislators, or continuing to build relationships with them.
thank you so much. Seriously, well informed for the great information. All right. Next, we are being asked to approve resolution 142223, delegating authority to the Washington State Intergalactic Activities Association.
All right, I think you just summed it up there, Drayden. It's something we do every year. We'll bring this to you every spring, and it delegates authority to WIA.
Are there any comments, questions from the board? We have a motion to approve resolution number 142223, delegating authority to the Washington Intergalactic Activities Association.
Move to approve resolution 142223, designating authority to Washington Scholastic Activities Association as presented.
We have a
Second.
Yeah. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
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 Oh, aye. Was I not sufficiently enthusiastic?
That's what I said. All right.
It's only the 14th time I've done this.
Resolution number 142223, delegating authority to the Washington State Intergalactic Activity Association is approved as presented. All right. Now we have the first reading, we are being asked for the first reading of revision to policy 3141, non-residents status. Mr. Monroe.
All right, thank you. What we're bringing here, longstanding policy and just a minor update. The minor update or edit is around providing families an opportunity to appeal denial with the Office of Teaching and Learning before having to go to the school board for an appeal. So that's the one edit you'll see in your board packet and bringing it tonight for first reading.
All right, this is the first reading. So do we have any questions or comments from the board? We have a motion to approve the first reading of revised policy 3141, non-resident status as presented.
Move approval of first reading of revisions to policy 3141, non-resident status as presented.
You have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right, we're unanimous. The first reading of revised policy 3141, non-resident status has been approved as presented. Next is the budget status report for April 2023, Ms. Bailey.
Sorry, making sure my alarms don't go off.
Good evening. In your board package, you have the monthly budget status report as of March 2023. So during the month of March, our general fund ended at about $15.5 to $15.6 million. This is right in that mid-range that we've been seeing the last few years. This includes revenues up to date, plus all of the adjustments with our apportionment, with regular apportionment, plus all the transportation, because the transportation funding came in. So everything is current and up to date as of that point. In our general fund, as you're looking through those reports, I have adjusted the revenues based upon the updated amounts. What I have not adjusted are expenditures. We've been talking with the board about reduced spending for this year as well as planning for next year. So at this point, while the revenues are updated, the expenditures are not. So in the next report as of April, I will be making those adjustments based upon the conversations that we've had in the leadership team, but we've also shared with you. Okay. As of March, our revenues are tracking as we would have expected. Expenditures year to date are right on track, and we do know that those will adjust moving forward based upon the budget reductions or the spending reductions that we're making. And then our projected ending fund balance is currently at 12.7, but that will go up as I make those adjustments to spending. Any question about the general fund?
Any questions for the board?
Okay. Debt service ASB and transportation vehicle are tracking as anticipated. We're starting to see an uptick in debt service revenues and fund balance. We'll see a big bump up in April with the spring tax collections, And then on June first is our next bond, interest payment, so we'll see that go back down. And then capital projects, we're still tracking our revenues are right where we expect them to be, but expenditures are significantly lower due to the delays that we've been seeing, as well as fund balance being up because we just haven't been spending money. But that is starting to take a turn, and we'll hear a lot more about those projects after I go sit down. Any questions about the budget status report? Okay. Ready to move on to enrollment?
Good.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really don't want to talk about enrollment.
Skip it all.
I know, I don't really, yeah. Enrollment as of April 10th was the first day of the school day of the month. So we did see some significant decreases in our enrollment. Overall, in grades K through 12, we lost 108 student FTE between March and April. Many of those were good losses. I mean, kids graduated, they met their credit requirements, and they're gone. Because we've got them over the finish line. So, you know, it's not a terrible thing, but it's not in the numbers. The other big factor in the enrollment decrease, and we really see this highlighted at the elementary level, is the departure of the carrier that was at PSNS in Omaha. So once that ship went back to San Diego, a lot of those families left us too. So you can see that at elementary school are primarily military serving buildings. You saw decreases in those areas. And then we also saw those smaller decreases at the middle school. So any questions?
No, and just the context to this, I don't go back and forth to DC because I like, once a vacation, but on a national level, this is happening on a national level. And with a research team that was looking at it as an objective of like what is going on. And those things are what they're diving into now. So from what I understand, we will have in February some good data on where people have went. And a lot of it, on one data that I think was very interesting was gentrification of a lot of communities that throughout the United States that people moved and there was no affordable housing. So I think that we're gonna see a lot of data pertaining to that, which I keep echoing here. That's one record keep saying about homeless population, just saying. But I think thank you to know that we're looking at it, and that steep dip of what we lost, we at least know these places where they are at.
Yeah. And one thing I did want to point out, we've seen over the last 2 months some pretty significant enrollment declines, much greater than what I would have anticipated. Because of this, I have gone through and adjusted my thinking around enrollment projections for next year. I don't think that, given this new information, moving forward with the assumptions that I had previously really were the best, the most prudent path moving forward. So I have gone through and made those adjustments. So when we start talking very specifically and diving into budget, we're gonna be looking at lower enrollment numbers than what we had talked about previously.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are we seeing similar numbers in other districts?
We were seeing, when I talked to my peers at other districts, earlier in the year, we were seeing very similar numbers of, decreases from the prior year. I have not checked in with my colleagues this spring to see if they're seeing these big drops. But I will certainly do that. We've got a business managers meeting actually this Friday, so that is a topic that I can bring up and find out what other districts are seeing this spring.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is she on? Oh, yeah, no, okay. Perfect. Good. Thank you. Know you? Don't worry. Good to see you.
So happy to see you.
All right, here's, exactly. All right, our next item is business replacement update.
It's not a fair question to ask if you know.
Been a while, been a while.
Oh, well. So thanks for having us tonight. We want to go over a few things tonight. We want to talk about the project budget. Let's get by the microphone. So we're going to talk about just the current budgets, notes on that, and then go through the site activities. Thought you would enjoy seeing some progress photos and just other things that are going on the site. I want to talk about future planning of Fairview, and then talk about budget options. So, next, please. You advance for me, or do I advance? Oh, thank you. So I want to do a little backward in history on this. When this project, Fairview Middle School, as you know, it's not done with voter approved bond. It was taking advantage of SCAP funding from OSPI, as well as federal heavy impact funds. When we first envisioned this project, we had a budget of about 65 million. And that's where we kind of did our modeling initially against. And so then we came in last June and increased that by 5 million. And so that was a budget add at that time based upon what we had learned, based upon the fact that we changed the sites from Olympic High School for Fairview to remain at Fairview instead. And then we came back in September because of the challenges we were having with permit and anticipation our permits were going to be late. And in that, we didn't ask for a budget reset at that time, but we asked for a budget status, or we gave you a budget status of where we projected it might be at that time, which was 72.4 million. Now that is asterisk, indicates that didn't include all the schedule impacts related to permit issuance. And we knew we were burning cash there month by month. So in October, we brought in a memo because we needed to for our OSPI funding eligibility to remain on course for release this July in a couple of months here in 2023. We brought forth that memo, and at that time, we said, we're going to have a funding increase. We're going to come back to you when we know more actual costs on the permit with a range we expect of a budget that will add anywhere from 1.5 to $5 million. So total top out at 71.5 to 75 million. Next, please. So just some project budget notes here as a reminder. You've seen most of this slide before. We've had subcontractor cost increase due to material and labor increases, all kind of still reacting to COVID. So that really did impact the buyout, all of which occurred in bidding last year, and some of which was finally committed to contracts early this year. Of course, we've had the permit delay impacts. We had planned to start the work on September 7th of last year. We had reset it for some of our forecasting purposes to January 3rd, and we actually got started in the field on January 27th. That's when we got our site development activity permit. Our building permit actually didn't arrive to us until March 10th. That's what I thought. I thought it was early March. So it was a little later, but we were still able to start on the site, and the building permit we anticipated would trail some, but of course not as much as it had. So just mentally, each of those permits took about 11 months to get, which is quite a difference than we've ever seen before. So then we look at the budget strategies implemented, and this, as you know, we've used a progressive design development model. And while I think it, doesn't represent what I would call savings in cost per se, I think it does manage costs well. Because we'll talk more later on in this presentation about construction contingency, because we've done a lot to vet a lot of things out and resolve them in advance. And that's because we have both the contractor and designer on board with us through the process. To the guaranteed maximum price, Amendment 5 is finalized. It's coming to Aaron to sign tomorrow, finally. We've gotten through all the language corrections we wanted to see in there and all the requirements we wanted. So we're happy with that outcome. That's a big milestone. It does incorporate, known costs for permit delay, and by that I mean known costs as of now. We've also leaned forward and included some overtime to the contractor in the early going to meet the schedule we want to. We spent a lot of time looking at the schedule. Originally, we had hoped to occupy at a milestone of the school year, whether that's in the summer, whether it's in spring break, whether it's at Christmas. We are now aiming for spring break the next year. Our substantial completion date is inked on this amendment 5 at March 29th. In order to achieve that, though, we had to lay down and pay some overtime costs. And we may have to pay more going forward to achieve that because it's tight. And, you know, we appreciate that SCESCA has brought forth a lot of suggestions in their own self-performed work because they can control the schedule earlier on and the concrete and the structural steel and those foundational areas that really don't then compound themselves as they go through a process and they get behind because they want to keep their subcontractors all coming behind them on task and on time. The last piece here is review updates of budget components. We, as you'll see tonight, the options have gone through reducing construction contingency below a percentage that we normally would have, but we feel comfortable with the range we're providing to you to think about. And we have looked at other owner costs. We certainly dialed in all of our consultant costs. We've looked at administrative costs for the school staffing, and we had looked at possibly reducing that sum, but decided against it because of the confined site and wanting the administrators to have time to focus on what they need to in the building. We also have a full-time security representative there, which is helping, of course. And then we looked at other incorporation of further project alternates. As you have heard me say before, we try to never answer a question fully until we absolutely have to. And by that I mean, we try to keep anything on the list that we hope to buy on the list until we can't have to say no. And so we're always thinking about ideas that we can incorporate that have been presented to us as priorities. So that's kind of what we see and what we've incorporated in these budget options tonight. Next slide, please. So this is the site plan. On this plan, up is north, right is the Central Valley Road where you enter. And of course, the south part of the site is at the bottom and the fields are to the west. And so a little hard to see these 3D rendering, but you can see the front entry of the school in the top right rendering and the arrow pointing to where the front entry will be. And I will say that currently, if you see about where the boarding, parking, and student drop-off is, that's roughly where the front of the building almost is now. So, you know, we're dropping that building component quite a bit south and therefore allowing that separated parking, student drop-off, and the bus drop-off areas. And it gives a more gracious entry, more of an approach entry. You can see the building as you come onto it better instead of it just suddenly being there and you're wondering where you're going to park at the same time. The other rendering is the Commons courtyard area, and the arrow is pointing to that, and that's on the west side. You'll recall that's on a lower level, and it looks up toward the fields, and there's, you know, still trees and, you know, beauty to look at and enjoy by being out in that space. And you see a lot of glass in the front entry area as well as that courtyard area from the Commons, and there's nice glass. Can't totally see it, but up at the very top corner of the top photo, you see some glass where the line kind of heads up. That's actually the library area. So a lot of nice glass incorporated in the building that I think will make a huge difference. These classrooms as they exist are not very well lit by the natural light or window openings, so it'll be a huge difference. One other thing I want to point out on here, which we'll be talking about in a moment, is along that line that's, you know, kind of where you see existing track fields. Off to the right is all the building and site development, and then it's kind of blank on the fields, track of fields. So that area is one of those areas that we're going to talk about that's not in scope currently. Hasn't been really all along, hasn't been an affordable model to incorporate that all along. very desirable to do. And certainly we've heard that from the staff and we know that to be true. We've heard it from our maintenance folks too. You know, the field conditions are soggy and so, you know, we want that to be better. So I just wanted to show you kind of where that line was. And then of course, down at the very bottom, we're also talking some tonight about the modernized gym music court area. Next, please. So this is some photos for you. We tried to drop in the wayfinding site plan at the top so you can see where these photos were taken from. So essentially this is taken from the field area looking up the hill toward the new building. Next, please. And this one is looking, if you were at the front entry of the school, kind of back from it, you can see the difference in the elevations from what will be the slab on grade of the main building and what will be the lower area for the lower floor classrooms and the courtyard for the commons. Next, please. This is a retaining wall. See where the arrow is there? So this basically, where the backhoe sitting up on top of it is the fire lane and is contiguous to the commons courtyard, and then it will drop down to the stormwater retention facility and the fields below. Next, please. This is just a foundation reinforcing steel and formwork. We engineers love these. They're so linear, so structural looking, and it's exciting just to see it going in, and you forget what goes underground, but it's kind of a nice visual. This is looking again from the south to the north toward the existing building now, which will be demolished. Next, please. And then here is this was taken 4/21, so last week. This is the retaining wall progress. This is where the separation of the slab on grade will go in the foreground for the main part of the building, and then the retaining wall will support, you know, what drops down in the commons and the lower floor. Next, please. And this last one is just showing in the locker room or weight area. This was a request of the school. They have an abundance of locker room areas at the school, but not as much utility in terms of fitness and weight room and being able to supervise by PE teachers having two groups of kiddos going on at one time. So this is demolishing those areas. We're also putting back in or keeping an opening in this area where they have good visibility going between these spaces. Next, please. Okay, so this gets into future planning Fairview and what is currently not in the project budget for the options presented tonight. So these are potentially future capital levy and or funding available after the Fairview Middle School project is completed. So as an example, on the interior, and these are big rocks. I mean, these aren't necessarily some very minor things that may be able to be accommodated more easily. We are not replacing the gym bleachers at this time, and we're not replacing the gym floor. The gym floor is actually not in bad shape, really. It's not been installed that many years ago. The bleachers, if they were replaced, it would be a refresh, really, of the bleachers. These are operational. Are they great? No, but they are operational. We put the bleachers back generally at the same location, but we recently replaced at Ole some bleachers that were refreshed too, had some operational issues. So just for order of magnitude, that's probably a $300,000 to $500,000 item. If we were to do that, in the future, it would be a good opportunity to do the flooring or consider doing the flooring at the same time. Gym scoreboard, video board, I mean, they have a functional gym scoreboard now. Is it is modern or current or as might be preferred? No, but we have essentially created the pathway for one to go in the future. So, you know, these are items that could be done as fairly standalone pieces if and when money became available or as a package, but they're just some things that we have not included. On the exterior, again, as I mentioned earlier, we haven't included anything for fields. So if right now the main soccer football field is a grass field, it was converted to turf field. We have the synthetic rubber track, which was replaced within the last 8 years. You know, we may want to lean into that. We also, if we did that, would want to put in the main field track and pathway lighting for use of the field in darker hours. We did contemplate that, and it is permitted as part of the conditional use permit to achieve that. So just FYI on that point. And then the last thing is just improvements to the grass field. I mean, the drainage board, we have put in underfill drainage, like on Cahia as an example, I think that's been very effective. So those are things that are not in there now, and I would expect this bottom part of the list, just, a bit of a wag, but it's probably easily a $3 million+ project to do that. So those are just things to be aware of as we go forward, but again, they're not in scope now, so we wanted that to be clear, no uncertainty about that. Next, please. So budget option 1, this is what I call the high water mark of option. This request, like the bottom, an increase of $3.8 million. This is based upon a reduction of our construction contingency I mentioned earlier. It's currently at 6% to 5%. It maintains all the costs in the budget that are expended for the Fairview replacement at Ole costs. So those were some lost sunk costs there when we moved it back to Fairview. And it does maintain the procurement amount for furniture, fixture, and equipment. And potential cost in this one, as I mentioned, are cost for additional overtime to achieve the schedule. We definitely want to make that March 29th substantial completion because particularly our technology, our entire staff is impacted by that move over, really needs that week to move over. So, and it was done that way in CK Middle School, worked well. It takes some orchestrating to be sure, but it's very doable and, did work well. Let's hear any further contingency cost. And on that point, I made some notes about just in talking about construction contingency, what we could face. A lot of it's surrounding the schedule for sure, is if we have to add some overtime there. But we still could run into some things related to demolition. We could have a rainy fall and be impacted by days. We don't give them any money for those days, but we don't want them to not use those days because we're trying to make that substantial completion schedule. Things of that nature could hit us. We've been pretty successful on the ground so far. We've had a few things come up, but not much cost compared to a lot of sites. I mean, we had significantly more underground unforeseen conditions and impacts like at CK High School, at Jackson Park Elementary School. I mean, so we've seen some underground site costs before. Just knock on wood, so far we haven't seen those in the same way here. And so I mentioned that because that's a big risk area, right? Big risk for construction contingency. So we've been fortunate there so far. So by leaving all these things essentially in here, these are the highlights of it. We arrive at a project budget option of $73.8 million, again, adding $3.8 million. Next slide, please. Option 2 is the low water mark, if you will. This reduces construction contingency to 4%. We have done some research on what most owners or contractors recommend a construction contingency amount for aggressive design build, and they recommend between 3% and 5%. So, we don't want to go too lean, but it's possible. And as I just said, I think a lot of the risk seem at this point manageable, but we don't want to go too lean. So this would transfer the cost expended for Fairview replacement only $1 million to another category. It's kind of a accounting exercise because we still pay the money. So it doesn't show up in this budget, but it shows up in another budget. So it doesn't really solve anything. We also shown here reducement of FF&E costs by about 11% or $330,000. So considerations here, we may have to come back on this one. Wouldn't really expect to, but it's a higher potential part, I'll put it that way. And it, would defer some of the furniture equipment until further cost certainty is known. We may also have enough budget in there that we'd be able to achieve what we need to even without it, but we're still getting pricing in on all of our procurement at this point. So this project budget option, $71,890, adding an amount of funding of $1.89. Next slide, please. So third option is kind of middle of the road. Here we've gone back up to 4.5% percent for construction contingency. We count the costs for, lost costs from Foley campus to Fairview in the budget. And we had a smaller reduction of FFP, just $120,000. Again, this is kind of, same considerations, but has less fire potential than option 2 did. This project budget option is a 73,390, and, the increase amount is 3.39. Next slide, please. So this is the summary page. Again, we had projected in October, we're probably gonna be at 71,505. These 3 budgets range within that, bracket area that we predicted. And we wanted to give the opportunity tonight for the board to talk about this and consider what they are comfortable doing. And then, of course, subsequent to this, we will populate the number into the recommendation of authorization for the budget, as well as for the, furniture, fixture, and equipment memo. And then we brought to you change order 3, which basically incorporates, pretty much fully everything on the music and gym that had been asked for, so. And that's the, part of the construction contingency use. So.
But one question I just want to make sure, just for the clarification for the public, that all of this is with inflation, they being put in with materials maybe going to go up. We see how the economy's going as far, that's projected in these numbers.
Yes, yes, it is. Yeah, I mean, I think the construction contingency is in a good place in general, I do. And also something to keep in mind, the contractor has built into the GMP, this is just part of the procurement methodology that's accepted everywhere. They have what's called a risk contingency. And they, so if they miss something, instead of coming to us and arguing that, they have to get our approval on it, mind you. But instead of coming to us and saying this really needs to, we need to have a change order for this, a lot of things can be resolved inbound of that guaranteed maximum price within that risk contingency bracket.
I want to make sure the board understands this is what we asked them to do, to bring us back, what the different budgets would look like, and forecast for ahead for it. So I want to keep that in mind. This is our request, and they'll come back and gave us this request for it. And then I also will say this, that, I know that was, we're brought into Fairview, agreed on. Well, I know you wanted it. Right? So the main thing too is that we know what Fairview needs and we know what our students need there for that school. And I think that, making a decision that best fits what the economy looks like, so we can go forward without the stoppage. But I want to make sure that is understood with the community. A lot of this, and we already talked about the county, was the delays with the county not having staffing. And we saw that throughout different developers that were going through the same thing. And I think we did a good job of making sure that, hey, we stayed in those things and say we got to get this done. That's costing us a lot. So keeping
A lot of communication.
Oh yeah. Oh, good. So I definitely know. So I wanted the community to know that this was, an effort on everybody's end to make sure that those conversations were happening with the county to say we got to get this done. So with that said, any other questions or comments from the board? All right.
Thinking, yes, we need to have a discussion. I mean, we can't just say, okay, we're gonna vote. Like, we need to have a discussion of these things. So, and I think just, I know as I was looking at these before the meeting, we, at our last study session, we gave the head nod on our new vision, mission, core values and goals. And so I wanted, and the point of having those is that when we have tough decisions, that's what's guiding us. And so just, I'm looking okay, if our vision is a vibrant, inclusive learning community, is it worth it then that we have a bigger budget so that those furnishing fixtures and equipment, that we can give our students everything they want. But then at the cost of, we're using that money for capital projects now, that potentially, it's kind of like we're pushing other projects coming further down the road for other students, right? So, I don't know if I'm right in that assumption. So,
I think, and Paula can weigh in here too, if I don't answer this, totally with all accuracy, but we still are maintaining the balance that the board wants to, the 10 million. There's still some other untapped we also are not in a position at this point to do, proceed forward with early childhood learning. But it isn't like anybody's hopeless, or really there's anything that isn't like, perhaps not ideal, but not like really needing the funds right away. We also hope that, with the bulk gives them heavy impact, that balance will come up more. And I also hope, and I do believe, it may not be a ton of money, but I do believe, we're comfortable with all these budget options. And I believe that we will have some money to put toward design of those fields. And with potentially the heavy impact funds that will be coming, that can proceed forward, because it, probably won't have we're not envisioning a levy in the immediate future or bond. So that I feel like we've bracketed it well for not pushing things off or not. And if we didn't have any of those things, we'd be telling.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's
So,
very helpful.
You can tell by these three, I mean, Robin and her team, they've done a tremendous amount of work because these three amounts are very, very close.
They are.
I mean, there's not a lot of wiggle room. Even when you look at option 2, $1 million of that is just, like, as she said, it's just moving into another budget. So these are really, really close. What option 1 gives us that option 2 doesn't give us is that additional budgetary capacity to be able to respond to needs, or if there are additional savings, or if we find out this spring or this summer that we qualify for heavy impact, the ability to maybe start picking off on some of those smaller things that aren't in the scope of this work. So, if Robin says the contingencies and the FF&E are good, I trust her. But if we have that additional capacity and dollars come in from another source, or something happens and we need to put additional dollars in order to be able to meet the timelines, then that flexibility is there.
Yeah, and I do appreciate with, option number 1, having the flexibility if we do need to increase the overtime to make that move in phase. So I do appreciate the flexibility that option 1 would give us, using that as just one example.
And I'll add this, we don't know what the economy is gonna do. And that's where, for me, it's such a real thing of let's put it out. We know 1 or 2 things. It happened to us with this project. I was thinking that there was money that came down. And the next thing you know, it's like, okay, good, we're a little bit more comfortable. So I think that having that, I think the team here does a good enough job that if we know that extra money came through, if heavy impact does hit, or we find money, because we have been great with that with our facilities. But I think the overall thing is giving our students exactly what is needed. You look at all of our facilities, maybe little things here and there could have been better, but we learned from that. And giving fairly, they deserve to have everything that we said that they need to have for them. And I think us not knowing how the economy is going to be is very uncertain. I think to give this team that ability to say, hey, go ahead, take this and do what you need to do, just report back to us sooner than later if anything has changed or anything that's come through. So any other comments or questions?
One other thing I might add, too, is that we have asked the contractor really what kind of shape they're in terms of procurement. Is there something you're not telling us? They've said no. They've gotten a lot of this stuff already bought out. Just next Monday, air handling units are coming in, and they're going to be stored over at our maintenance yard because Kirby's a very tight site, and that's behind the secure area. But that's a good example. I mean, how we got out in front of the whole of that element, because that's one of the worst long lead items. And they're feeling very confident about where the buyout is. All the work they've done on the subcontractor bidding and procurement of materials. So, we're not hearing, their biggest concern right now is meeting that schedule. They know it's tight, and so, they're working hard to do that. And you know, they got their hands full to get it there. But but that seems to be the only real concern that we're hearing.
And I just one more thing, we have to be diligent in knowing that we don't know where we're gonna be for next year. Much as, all is doing our best, to maintain and look around that curve, we still have to be diligent that we may not have. If you don't wanna be in that position, we'll be sitting here looking at, we have to slow it down and stop it. And so I just wanna put that out for you. We don't have, you know, like next year, we don't budget, even though she's giving.
Is this capital launch spend?
So that, and my understanding is that we're deciding whether we want to spend 73.8 or whether it's money that we have, but what it comes down to is what we have left over. We still have about the money. Okay. Let me see. Okay, so, these are the three options, and we're gonna just make pick any actions. We have a motion to approve the Fairfield Middle School replacement budget modification, and there's one or two ways we can have to choose one. Yeah. I think a good way to do it is to be a voice. What's that again? A voice. That's what. All right, so, and then who's doing the tally? All right, so, for project budget option one, Dr. Tracy.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Dr. Howard.
Yes.
Dr. Green. Yes. Right, last name. Hey, thank you. Dr. Hayes, sorry. All right. For option two, Jackson, sorry. Jackson, yes. All right. Governor, budget, you want to make sure that we want to go through it? We want to vote. Just in case somebody, all right. So
we would then motion.
Yes.
To
for that amount.
For the 73,980,000.
Sure. Good too high again.
For the budget increase.
Budget increase, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. But it's a modification, right? All right. So do we have a motion to approve the Fairfield Middle School replacement budget modification to $73,800,000 as presented? Oh, 3.8 million, sorry. 3.8 million as presented.
So moved.
Need a motion.
So move approval of the Fairview Middle School replacement budget modification to $3.4 million as presented.
All right, we have a second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, with unanimous vote, the Fairfield Middle School replacement budget modification has been approved to 3.8 million as presented. Yes, this is just that modification. And thank you all for the board. All right, next we are being asked to approve the request for delegation authorization to the change order 3 to arrangement with the Skanska USA Building Inc. for the Fairview Middle School replacement project.
Yes, and so this one is asking for delegated authority $500,000. That $500,000 is inbound of that construction contingency that you just voted on. So it's not an added cost. We wanted to bring it to your attention, because Gas was still kind of working on refining a couple of the numbers as we went to press. And so right now the number is falling below that, but we wanted to give it a little capacity just so that we wouldn't have to go back. And we will be reporting on the actual amount in a future change, so it will show up and be recorded for actual accuracy. But one of the reasons we wanted to bring it was because that it does include one of the areas that we had saved till toward the end to really incorporate, and that is the further modernization of the gym and music building. Where the way we had navigated this design process was to get the new building fully designed, get the site work fully done, doing what we really felt we had to, particularly on the structural and envelope areas of the music gym building. And that, though, as we went through it, at times left some modernization yet to complete in the music and gym areas. We've had some good dialogue with the team there and have understood their needs. This change order incorporates the primary part of that interior improvement that had been requested. There are a couple of things we're probably still working through of a very minor nature, but I mean, I'm talking very minor nature. It was a good thing about those music classrooms in particular, they're getting windows, which will be lovely. You know, a refresh lighting, I mean, all of the interior stuff. And the choir room, of course, the risers are being removed. So that's gonna make that much more flexible space for them. They would have loved to have had the band risers moved too, but that was a decision made very early on, and so it was gonna be a very heavy lift, and, you know, it's something they've worked with, not perfect perhaps, but still a good model, that they understand, I guess is the best way of putting it. So this is for that authorization, and, that's why we're asking here, but I didn't want to give you those details.
Any questions, comments from the board? We have a motion to approve the delegate authority to change order number 3 to agreement with Skanska USA Building for the Fairview Middle School replacement project as presented.
Move approval of delegated authority for change order number 3 to agreement with Skanska USA Building, Inc. for the Fairview Middle School replacement project as presented.
Second? Second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Delegated authority to change order number 3, agreement with Skanska USA, Inc. Fairview Middle School replacement project is approved as presented. And we are being asked to approve the authorization of procurement of furniture, fixtures, and equipment for the Fairview Middle School replacement project this week.
So in this case, because you approved the budget option, increasing the budget amount by 3.8 million, that included a budgetary target of $2,925,000 for furniture, fixture, and equipment. And I believe you probably have the board member in front of them that has that amount in it. So just to clarify. Yes. No confusion, numbers are right.
All right. Do we have any questions or comments? So, do we have a motion to approve the authorization of the procurement of furniture and equipment for Fairview Middle School replacement project in the amount of $2,925,000 as presented?
Move to approve authorization for the procurement of furniture, fixtures, and equipment for the Fairview Middle School replacement project in the amount of $2,925,000 as presented.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Authorization for the procurement of the furniture, fixtures, and equipment for the Fairview School replacement project has been approved in the amount of $2,925,000 as presented.
And we thank you for that. I know that David Bryant's here as an example where they're anxious to get some technology ordered. So not that we were held up from doing it per se, because we had money in there. We just wanted to make sure that we have this. And then we're ordering some other furniture components. So we want to make sure we're ready to go when the substantial completion date. So thank you to that. Also, next month, we're coming back in to talk about a capital project update of a general nature. You know, Fairview will be one of them, but then some other updates like where Ole is and roofs at Pinecrest, Silver Ridge, you know, things of that nature. So we'll be giving an update on that next month. Hopefully have some photos to show you. And I wanted to certainly thank Joel for all his hard work. He's been terrific on this, and you know, it's a heavy lift to keeping track of this contract every time. So he's working tirelessly.
Thank you as well and your staff.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. They've been great project managers. We've done great work. So you're very welcome.
All right. Thank you, board. Good discussions and well numbers. All right. Next we have communications announcements. And for me, it's not so much been, and you know, with the legislative session, and I'll just, you know, in all transparency too, community and the board, a lot of things that, because we had two great people dealing with legislation and a board that is engaged with the legislation, a lot of what I was focusing on with Bill Wise had to do with homelessness and affordable housing in Washington State. It was a good time. This is something I've been advocating for a while, and I think we had a lot of good things with the governor that we just had to press. And a lot of the foundations that I was dealing with, the organizations were really headstrong. Let's get it now. And now it's where, you know, a lot of what I was concentrating on with the budget in the state was really at. It affects our McKinney Dental children, it affects students in our schools, so it's not far left from it. And every time that my voice, I always spoke for McKinney Dental children, and which a lot of people didn't understand the difference of, you know, well, aren't they homeless? And yeah, they're students, they're homeless students, which should not be. So some good things that came out of it for me. And I will also say, you know, the Lando was beautiful, man. And I was so happy that we had a lot of our boys here. It was a great bonding moment for us to get together, to know each other. And also the information that was there. Some of the things that were just so powerful in understanding that we're not unique to anything that's going around in the nation. You know, there's a lot of things that we have to do to better education and to make education stronger. And I'm happy that I'm in it with my colleagues here. I think that we have a lot of work to do, and we're on that path to do some great work, and came back with just a lot of, you know, understanding that education is changing. And I think it's one of the things that we're going to have to really, when I say we, a lot of people that have been in this field for a long time are those that are battling with the change, but then those are also embracing the change. You know, Eric, when I first got here, it was like, you know, this was 2019, it was like, hey, technology, you know, we need to be there, and then boom. So it's those type of things of seeing where the future is for our children and what does education look like, and really go in there and reinventing what our children, not what we want, but what our children want and need to be successful in this world. So now, besides my son running his first country track meet, I was like, that's really it for me. And I'm hitting schools all this week because my son said, how come she goes to school more than you? So my son called me out on it. So I think she stopped by my son's school. So definitely hitting more schools now that legislative session is over and I can do that. Very crazy.
At the end of March, right before Orlando, I met on Zoom with Dr. Prince and with Kelsey Winters from WASDA. And so we are doing using WASDA to help us with a full policy review. And so I think you might have Kelsey come join us at a board meeting to kind of explain more of that process. But I am excited for that, just to work at getting our policies really tight and up to date. And then Director Hine and I were able to attend our government-to-government meeting with the Squamish tribal leaders earlier in April. And it was a fantastic presentation, and it was wonderful to see and hear what we as a school district, some of our family engagement opportunities. And then it was on our progress to graduation also, but our graduation rate for our native students was 100% for the last few years. So that is not late. So I just think that I just applaud our students. And then it was great. We were able to do visits to CK High School and meet with some of our native students at CK High School, and then with one of our students at Oldie. And he was fantastic. And we talked about hope builders a little bit, and it was fantastic to see him as he explained what he wants to do. So he's a senior this year, he's going to graduate, and he was Montana State. But study environmental science, and then he wants to bring what he learned back to the Squamish tribe. And like right, yes. But it was Josh and Leonard from the Squamish tribe, and like their eyes lit up, like he was building hope in them with his plans. And so I just appreciated that. So I did have a couple of normal monthly visits to Fairview, and so I parked down in that bottom parking lot, like kind of key to see how construction is going. And it's exciting to the parking lot, and I'm like, okay, there's cement, I'm excited. And let's see, today, we already mentioned, but it's student voice visits up at Ridgetop and at OE. And that it's good to hear from our students. And one thing I'm particularly enjoyed from the OE students, a couple of them had mentioned that with students versus having that, when teachers provide different options or present the material in different ways. And so they didn't call it, but it's universal design of learning and it's UDL. And so it was neat to see like that's something we heard about in our study sessions and we see questions. So it was neat to hear that and the positive impact that had on students. So and then Orlando and NSBA was great. And I think like my biggest takeaways were from multiple sessions were that we as a board, we determine the culture of our school district. And as we've looked at that climate data and are heartbroken by it, that okay, we as a board, the decisions and the discussions that we have in these board meetings determine that culture. And I love meeting other board members from across the country, and you hear what's similar, what's working for them, what challenges they're having, what's different. And two highlights from a couple of sessions, but I did a pre-conference session on how to better support our LGBTQ plus students. And one of the keys from that was that if we don't have strong policies, our educators are navigating the process no matter what, whether we have policies or not. And so if we want to support our educators, like, we've got to have the discussions and the policies at our level, or we're just having to navigate in kind of no man's land. And then with the meeting of doing a full policy review, I had a great session, and it was a school board back east, and they have a 13-member board. So they have 3 members that are just on a policy committee, but just a couple of tools, like it was just a Google sheet, but I have it and to look at how they were tracking their policies. So they did go from having a lot of policies that were out of date to like now they are reviewing policy, every board meeting, and they're very much, so all those policies that we have that are supposed to be reviewed annually, they put on their board calendar. And so that was really kind of like a tool to model as we're moving forward. So.
We're done.
Right. And sorry for interjecting here.
Yeah,
we would like him to come teach for us. So I'm gonna start with some brief notes from NSBA. I was shocked at the number of school districts that are smaller than us, but they have 7 to 11 board members. I mean, just a huge boards for some of these school districts that have 6,000-7,000 students. So just kind of a really brief overview of some of the sessions that I sat in on. I sat in on a really great one about a healthy board and what makes a healthy board versus an unhealthy board. And they, I think his name was Lee, focused on having a diverse board. So everyone has input, considers alternative options, compromise is normal, appreciate individual differences as a resource versus a divided board, which really leads to an unsuccessful board because you can't accomplish anything. So a divided board, allows their personal needs to get ahead of the team, the political influences behind their decisions, allowing philosophical differences to hold up progress. And I just thought that is so important for us as a board to really look at whether we are a diverse board and we are looking at, differing opinions as an opportunity to grow, or differing opinions are where we're going to hit a roadblock. And then I sat in on a class about bias in leadership, kind of an overarching theme of this was considering the difference between your impact and your intent, and that the impact is really what's important there. An effective leader uses an equity lens, is committed to being a lifelong learner, engages in inclusive leadership, and has the ability to display empathy and lead with compassion. And there's a Harvard bias test that I have not taken yet, but I've talked to Denise about that. I think might be a really good tool for us. Take as a board and look at what our unconscious bias may be as a way to grow as a board. And then I sat in on a class about school safety, and it was the superintendent and I believe some of the board members from Santa Fe High School, which unfortunately had a school shooting. Is it 2019? I don't remember the year now. But as they were talking about their like after learning, like what did we learn from this? What can you take from this so that you are in a better situation? They were all things that we are doing. So it actually, I left that class feeling really happy about the fact that we are in CK. They did not have a master key system for their doors. And so they ended up destroying over 80 of their doors when law enforcement had to break into them because they had a key ring with 150 different keys. They did not have a master key available to them. They did not have building maps for law enforcement. Law enforcement was not familiar with their schools, and so law enforcement showed up and they would say, you know, we have an incident in the cafeteria or in this one, and law enforcement had no idea where that was. And I know for a fact that our law enforcement agency, the Kitsap Sheriff's Department, does know our buildings. They are in our buildings regularly. I have been in some of the buildings when law enforcement is there doing just general safety walk. And so I actually left that class, as awful as that tragedy was for them. I left so thankful that this is the district that we are in, and our district has taken these steps. They did not have an established command post. They didn't know where their students should reunify if there was a tragedy. So the students and staff scattered. They did not know where they were. They just ran into the trees, ran into the streets. They did not have a process set up with their buses on how to pick up the students and get them to a meeting point. So parents didn't know where their kids were, and the kids had maybe found a friend's house to, run to, or hopped in a car. It was horrifying, but it made me really appreciative of the groundwork, or the preparation that CK does have. Sorry, this one's not going to be as brief as my legislative report. And then another breakout session about communication strategies with the public. And I heard some interesting strategies that I do want to explore more with the board, possibly at a retreat or a study session. One of the suggestions was a district PTA council. And what they did was they had PTA officers from the different schools would meet periodically, maybe quarterly. And so they could talk about what, as a PTA officer, what they are seeing in their school, what their PTA is specifically concerned with. And so this PTA council would meet with a portion of the school board periodically. And it could be quarterly or, whatever they decide. I believe that particular school district met with them quarterly. And then they had a superintendent parent group, and they reported that it kind of had mixed results, but I don't think that their plan was, well thought out. And it actually made me really think that it's similar to what we are doing with our ambassador group. So we're in our first year with our ambassador group, and they meet at different locations, and they get a tour of the school, and there's presentations by the cabinet members, and the superintendent is there. And so I feel like we're kind of actually doing that. And then something I took away from that class is that collaboration is not compliance with an individual or a group's ideology. Collaboration needs in-depth thinking and problem solving, which takes time. So collaboration is an ever-evolving thing, and, it does require a little bit of time. And then Dr. Prince and I, at the very beginning of NSBA, we had an opportunity to go visit 2 different schools in Orange County. And I learned so much about the axolotl. So, so the first school we went to, their library had 10 aquariums in there. There were baby alligators, which were not my favorite. But I had never seen in person axolotl, and I did not realize that it is a tiger salamander that has failed to complete metamorphosis. So they had a tank of these salamanders and these axolotl. Yeah. They look like a horror nightmare, but it was very interesting. And this school, so the 2 schools that we went to, they are community schools. So, it's not something that the community can opt into. And that first school with all of the very interesting animals, they are absolutely busting at the seams. They do not, as a K-8 school, and they do not have the footprint to expand. And so one of the ways that they've gotten very creative is they have the funding for the appropriate number of staff per pupil, but they do not have building space. So they have a couple different classrooms where they have 2 teachers and 40 students all within one classroom. And we visited one. It was very loud. But it was very creative as well. And that same school has a pretty extensive garden in their yard, and they have partnered with the local farmers market. So it's like it's a full cycle. So they are learning how to grow, and then they're learning how to market their produce at the farmers market. And one of the things that they have done is they have put a QR code on like bags of lettuce or celery, and they are encouraging you, after you've purchased this piece of produce, go home and then scan the QR code and share with the school how you use that produce. Like what kind of recipe did you put it in? How did you use this? And so it's a full cycle. And then their art partner, they have an art partnership with a local coffee shop and a record store. So the students' art is on the like coffee sleeves of the coffee shop, and then is also on the paper sleeves for the records of the record store. So you can go to the record store, and so it's increasing traffic into the coffee shop, and the local community businesses buy the students' families because they want to see their artwork in these stores. It's pretty cute. And then the second school we went to in the afternoon is in Eatonville, and it was the first self-governing all-Black municipality in the United States. And this school has embraced their community, and they're really carrying on the pride that comes with being that first self-governing municipality. The average income of the community is right around $20,000. So it was quite a bit different than the first school we went to, because the first school, they said that when they built the school there, the socioeconomic status of that community it wasn't really high, but the school is so good that it drew in a lot of people. So the second school, they are really excelling with what they have in the community. They share a property with the Boys and Girls Club, and Boys and Girls Club provides free before, after, and school break care. And many of the teachers also work at the Boys and Girls Club, so they are utilizing the Boys and Girls Club as homework help. So the teachers are there in the afternoon or before school to help all of the students with their homework. And we had hallway presentations by some pre-K students, kindergarten students, first grade, second grade. And the pre-K students, there was a set of boy-girl twins, and I personally have boy-girl twins, so I thought this was funny. And all 4 of these pre-K CK students get up and they say, in the 1970s, and then the first student recites a fact, and it's the girl. And then they say, in the 1970s, and now it's supposed to be her brother. So she elbows him, recites his fact for him, and then they continue. But it was really cute. So that is everything from NSBA. Now I'll move on. So yeah, Denise and I were at the middle school jazz festival yesterday. And so it was Fairview, CK Middle School, Enumclaw High School. I would love to know how they ended up here, and then Ridgetop. And so I actually owe Ridgetop a listen later because I had my daughter with me and it was past bedtime and we needed to get home. But it was fantastic. It was really well attended. There were 2 food trucks, welfare popcorn, and the ice. Thank you. So that was wonderful. The weather was nice. We had 3 bands out there playing. I really am excited to be able to hear more of that. And it was at CK Middle School in their little courtyard outside outside the cafeteria. Thank you. I've been continuing to read with the Readers Are Leaders groups at a couple of the schools, and the 3rd graders I'm reading with are just making leaps and bounds, and I'm so excited to see their progress, and then moving on to chapter books. So we're working through chapter books, one, a little bit each week, and so they're starting to finish their first chapter books with me. And then yesterday, I was able to be a panelist for some of the AP boards at CK High School. I was blown away by the creativity that these students had with their projects. And you can tell that they have dedicated a full year to this. And I look forward to being able to participate in future years. And then, as Denise mentioned, we participated in the Suquamish Tribe Government to Government Day. Sonia Berry and Haley Mays did a wonderful job with their presentations to the boards about CK's work, including Indigenous education in our curriculum and extracurricular activities. And then we had a wonderful student-led tour of Olympic High School and CK High School, including being able to go into both performing arts centers, which they're both amazing. And I really appreciate that each of our schools has its own little personality. It's like you're meeting a new person. And they're both beautiful and unique in their very own ways. All right.
Yes.
I can't wait to hear.
Yeah, so I was also able to go to the school board conference with Eric very nicely, gave me a spot. And so I took the opportunity, they had multiple sessions for new board members. And so I got to learn about like what a board member actually does, how, parliamentary procedure, all those kinds of really great core things that I really need to know. And one of the other sessions that I went to was based on student achievement and how to really look at the data to determine what areas you need to improve in. That's ultimately our goal, right? Is for our students to get achievement so that whatever they do beyond high school, they're going to be successful at it. And so that's always kind of in the back of my mind as I'm looking at some of the data points that we are getting as a board for, ELA and math and science. And another session that I went to that also talked about student achievement, and it's something that also I would like in some sort of a study session or something for us to look at, is they actually had data on improvements in their student scores on their state tests that they had to do based on the impact of high schoolers. And so one of the things that they do is their high schoolers, the week before they graduate, they walk through the halls of the elementary schools in their cap and their gown so that the elementary students can see what they're working for. And then another thing that they do is the kids for all the grades, have a banner for the year that they are going to graduate. And at the end of the school year, they all get together with their banner and they walk down the hall to the next pod for that grade, and they get to hang up their banner. So they know this is where I'm gonna be next year. That specific school was smaller than ours. I realized that we have like some elementary schools that like I know half of them go to Columbia and half of them end up going to CK middle school. And some of that might be a little bit difficult, but they really saw some improvement in their students and their own like taking responsibility and ownership in what they were doing, because now they could see what they were working for. And so that was really great to see kind of some of those things. And I will say that I took the axolotl thing, so I had to go on a work trip, and my husband and I were walking through some shops, and we of course wandered into a kid shop because you can't go somewhere without your kids and not bring them back something, right? And there was an actual axolotl toy, and I told my husband all about the axolotl and how it can be and all of that, and he was like, looking at me, I was crazy. But anyway, and I did get to see an alligator, not in a way, and it was very exciting. I was excited. Megan was not thrilled by it, the alligators in Florida, but it was next to the swimming pool. It was innocent. We were fine. I thought it was exciting. And then I also really appreciated on a personal level getting to know the other board directors. I really think that that's important for team building, and when you can get to know somebody on a personal level and know their path that they've been on, that's what guides our opinions and our perspectives. And so being able to have that, that was invaluable. It was great. And they were very welcoming of me as a youth board director, so that was awesome as well. And then I actually met with Aiden, who's one of the writers for the paper at CK High School. I met with her last Friday, and she did an interview. So if you subscribe to that paper, in May, there's something about me in there. But we met in the library at CK High School, and on my way out, there was a bulletin board that they did, and it was poetry around the world. And students got to, look and make sure that the country that they wanted to represent wasn't already chosen, and then they got to pick a piece of poetry that they could identify with and that they wanted to share with others. And for me, poetry is very personal. If you write it or you read it, it invokes emotion and can help drive you towards endeavors in your own life. And so it was really neat to get to see what the students chose to show everybody else. A little piece of them, even if they weren't the ones writing it, it still represented them in some way. They could identify with it. And it was beautiful. If you get a chance to go through the library there and look at it and read it and see what the students are choosing, it was really great. I really enjoyed seeing that. So
thank you. Hi, Dr. I'm so excited. I didn't go to Orlando. I hated giving up the frequent flyer miles. But I was the first one to go, I think, several years ago to New Orleans, and David Vicker would be able to tell you that while I was in New Orleans and while I was at the sessions that like these guys were, his phone was going ding, 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 because every time I heard something, I texted it to him. So I understand your enthusiasm, and I think that's really great. And I'll comment on one last comment about that at the end. I went to the district ambassador meeting. I'm going to loop back to some of these things as well, which is significant in that my schedule has not allowed me to do those kind of things for the last several years. And it was really cool at several levels in that when it was at Brownsville, of course, one of the reasons it was at Brownsville is what, that building's 70 years old. Yeah. Everything else, that's reason number one. Reason number two was that it's a STEM school, a self-declared STEM school. Toby Tebow was the principal at the time when they decided to do it. I think Jill, where's Jill? Kind of did it without permission, right? Okay, or he did it and then asked for
That is-
permission. And she and I already talked about this 3 or 4 years ago, so it was, but it's really cool. It was really cool then, what's really cool now is that the fact that they are still invested in that, and they're doing it, they take it very seriously, and they've embedded that in their curriculum moving forward, and that's very encouraging to see. It's pretty exciting. Now, I know that Doug Dow said that all of our schools are STEM schools, but I think Brownsville was the leader and continues to impress with that. So that was pretty neat. I also went to the student voice thing today, which is the first group that I got to do. CK High with this advanced choir, then CK Middle with a 6th grade group, Ridgetop with a 6th grade group, and then the Pulse panel at Olympic High School, which the principal described as kind of a mini cabinet for students. I think the thing that excited me the most or impressed me the most, or both, was the enthusiasm or the willingness of the students, especially those in the high schools, to put themselves out there with respect to discussing the topics that we wanted to talk to them. The first topic was, and I'll probably steal some of your thunder, Aaron, but was students first, which is one of our core values, new core values in our new plan. And then the second was to discuss passion and dreams that they might have with respect to our vision statement. It was probably a little bit over the head of the 6th graders. For students first, we heard a lot about school lunches and PE and things like that, but those were important to them. But there were other things that I won't mention here that were equally important and equally serious in nature that they were willing to put out there, which that we will need to follow up on. But with the high school kids, I mean, some of these kids, they really put themselves out there. And what's interesting is to see how, especially with that choir, the community that exists and how they look out after each other. And let's talk about a diverse group. There are AP students in there are jocks in there, there's not a self-admitted autistic student. And it was just the willingness to do that, I think, was very, very impressive. And I think there were some messages for us as a board and as a leadership team that really listened to what they were saying. They have some opinions about what they need, but from us, and I think that's where it needs to get back to us collectively as a board and the leadership teams, and you start moving out on some of those things. I won't go into the whole story, but I'd like to congratulate 2 kids from Claudia. Claudia is one of my schools, who signed letters of intent to go to college for baseball today. Gabe Carpenter's, I think, is going to Shoreline Community College. They have a pretty good program over there. I don't know how many we've sent over there. And then Matt Bailey is going to Lower Columbia College. Both of them play baseball. Matt's in a particularly interesting story in that the first game last football season, he completely dislocated his elbow, which is, if you know anything about baseball, is not a good thing. But he's back and he's playing and doing well enough to go to college. I think those are neat things. But what I really liked was the fact that there was recognition of it. I knew it was on Facebook. It was pretty cool to see on that. So congratulations to those 2 kids. So here's the last thing. So really cool that you guys came back with all this stuff, all this way it was David described to me, where you brought a lot of stuff back. And stuff and it's all up here and it's all great. Okay, but I kind of tuned into what Denise said about the board. The board sets the culture. Okay, and I think there's some agreement that based on the climate survey and some of the other things that we've seen, that we have some work to do on our culture. And my challenge to the board, and And I'll be honest with you, it's taken me 14 years to say this. It's been a long time, because it's pretty funny. I asked the sixth graders, how many of you, said I came on the board in 2008. How many of you were born in 2008? The teacher raised their hand. That was it. But in my time on the board, you know, come back from a lot of these meetings from WASDA in Spokane or Bellevue. We come back from places like New Orleans and Nashville and Denver and these places, and all of these meetings were equally the same. But the talk, we're not going to change the culture unless we have real discussions about it. Till we put it on the agenda, we start talking about what the real problems, okay, that are causing the culture issues. We mentioned this to the students a couple times, and we got a lot of head nods. In these surveys, climate surveys, for both staff and students, we're seeing about a 30 to 33% rate of those who feel like they belong, okay, in their school. And that's for staff and for students. Okay, so in my mind, for the longest time, and I'm sorry, I apologize for not, I don't know, having the guts or whatever you want to call it to bring it up. Okay, this board needs to have those discussions. We need to figure out how we're going to go about doing it. We have to decide that we're going to do it, and then we're going to have to do it. And we're going to have to take input. We're going to have to listen to, I think, some more. Okay, and we're going to have to fix it. I came on this board, and all I ever wanted was Central Kitsap School District to be the best school district in the county, and then the best school district in Western Washington, then the best school district in the state of Washington. And I believe then, and I still believe now, that we have the potential to do just that. Okay, but in order to do that, we're going to have to change some things. We're going to have to, we're going to have to go, and we're going to have to, we said this today to these two groups of kids, especially the high school kids. Okay, we need to go meet them where they're at, instead of expecting them to come meet us where we want to be. It's that simple, okay? This, you know, use this. For those of you who have been coming to meetings for 10 years now or whatever, I more than once tell it, you know, this is powerful. You know, I served on ships that had weapons control systems that at the time were, you know, state of the art. They didn't hold a candle to this that I carry with me and I use all the time, the information. We need to go meet these kids where they are. Okay, we need to meet what their needs are. We need to recognize what those are. We need to go do that. We need to be aggressive about it. We need to be proactive about it. Okay, and this board needs to be connected or committed to it. Okay, we're coming out with a new strategic plan. Okay, there's got to be some bite to that. There's got to be a target at the end. Okay, and there's got to be a commitment on the part of the school board and of the leadership team, okay, to get us moving in that direction. We won't get there in 3 years, okay, but we should be moving in that direction. We should have a good idea of what we need to do at the end of 3 years to get the rest of the way there, okay? And this group of sixth graders that are brand new in middle school and soon be in high school, a couple of years down, 3 years down the road, okay, we need to do that for them. And those that are still before them, okay, coming before them, and those that come after them. And that's what we sign up for, and I think that's what we need to commit to. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. Yeah, thank you all for very good input and the passion for what you guys went back.
Well, for our community and listeners, I appreciate the board conducting business. Part of our commitment when they do learn together is to have time to debrief together. So what you heard in the board reports tonight was really debriefing and talking and sharing, because they don't have that opportunity when they do learn together. So thank you for letting that process together. That's something that is really of value to them. So thank you for that. I'll try to be really quick. The oxalotl, they did not share that it actually regenerates a cut off tail. We all knew that. Or a leg. We all knew that. Did you know that if you cut their head off, they will regenerate their head? And so it's super scientific and research a whole. That's all I'm gonna say about the national
Can I say something?
NCA.
So, when I lived, growing up in Virginia, we went down with family in Florida. I can tell you stories about walking into a garage, knowing that we had bought a baby alligator while we were in Florida and we brought it back to Virginia. Okay, and we kept it in a tub in our garage.
That's horrible.
There's nothing like walking into the garage in the middle of the night, looking to get an ice cream sandwich out of the freezer and not knowing if you're gonna get your foot bit off because the alligator got out.
So my superintendent's report's not about that. Very quickly, because I do want to listen to our couple comments. So a couple of really outstanding things I have to mention. One is that we were honored to receive the Outstanding Partnership Award, Central Kitsap School District, out of all of the West Sound STEM Network Regional Partners, and that is that's a number of organizations and partners and districts that we were selected as the Outstanding Partnership Award. For those of you who don't know, West Sound STEM is the network. It's an organization that supports a network of partners from businesses and school districts, educational agencies, higher education institutions, CTE practitioners, providers, government, military, community, tribes, library systems, nonprofits, out-of-school providers, and workforce development agencies. And so Doug Dow and Michelle, sorry, did I forget Schuster, sorry, I had just went out. So we accepted that award on behalf of Central Kitsap, so that was fantastic. The other award, I want to let you know that on Monday night, Drayton and I and Jenny attended the WASA Regional Awards, a celebration on Monday, where we recognized our very own Jewel Shepherd Sampson, Executive Director of the Kitsap Black Student Union. And Jewel received the Community Leadership Award for her work in elevating and amplifying student voice, especially those voices that have historically been silenced. She partners with districts, including ours, to engage in important dialogue that will help break down barriers and create more inclusive and engaging spaces for all of our students. And we appreciated the chance to honor Jewel and thank her for this very important work. So congratulations to Jewel. NSBA conference was very much a learning opportunity and a fantastic time for the boards to be with other board directors from all across the country. For me as superintendent, to be able to engage with other superintendents and board directors, really the impact of what is out there, what are the trends in technology, the trends in governance, the trends in programs to impact and enrich student learning, but also impact the future of our education. And so I think that is really important for us to keep our eyes ahead on the future so that we can best equip our students so they can be successful. Advanced placement exams, it's happening. And we have about 1,000 students in our district that are taking AP courses over the next couple of weeks. It's exhausting, it's stressful. The kids are doing an amazing job. We talked to a few of them in Student Voice today. Those students who earn a score of 3, 4, or 5 could actually earn credit at many colleges and universities. It was such an honor for me to attend the capstone project of our very own Cassie. She's not here because she's actually competing at DECA, or she would be here sharing about her project, but I learned so much, and I also sat in on Aiden's, and it's just impressive and so encouraging to watch a 2-year project culmination of their capstone. District ambassadors we've talked about, super engaged group and very exciting. Kudos to HR, Paula and Jeannie and teams that shared around all things business and HR related. The graduate or the ambassadors loved it. And then finally, I wanted to say a quick word about our CK Connects correction. There's a newsletter that we sent out to our community earlier this month. It was a headline in that publication mistakenly read Navy when it should have read Army. And part of this, the reason I'm publicly catching this is, we are such a high Navy town, military town, and did not mean to disrespect or dishonor at all. So this era was introduced during the layout and design process, and unfortunately we didn't catch it before the piece went to print. invited Tom Fox, a retired colonel, and his wife Marilyn, a former Department of Defense teacher, who are running an amazing robotics club at Esquire Hills. So we have already apologized to Colonel Fox, and we have taken action to prevent a similar mistake from happening again. But we really just wanted to put that out publicly because we definitely didn't catch that. So thank you for that, and thank you for being able to sit through our deliberations tonight as well.
Thank you very much. Any public comments? If you're silent to speak tonight, thank you for joining us. The guidelines for making public comments are available on your website and on our comment cards. Please be mindful of these guidelines, especially as they relate to maintaining a civil and respectful meeting environment. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. As a reminder, this is an opportunity for citizens to address the board with their comments and concerns, but it is not intended as a forum for public debate. We will listen with care and consideration, and any matters requiring follow-up will be addressed outside of this meeting. Just to let you know, we want to make sure that we give you your time. Please keep in the time, and Vice President Denise will make sure that she keeps the time on it. Not like cutting people off. We want to hear from you and hear fully what you have to say. All right, we will begin with in-person comments.
Here we go, and we're going to start with Perry Brunson, and then Dominique Barnett is on deck. Perry or Polly, I'm sorry.
Good evening. Yes, it's Perry Brunson. I just wanted to start with a quick introduction. I'm here with my husband. We were part of a parent-led group working with La Jolla to resolve an issue that came up. I grew up in the CK school district. I graduated from CK high school. In fact, I've seen a couple of my teachers here in the room. I have 4 children. All of them have attended La Jolla or are attending La Jolla, who have graduated, and I currently have a sophomore and a 7th grader attending. We have been in this school district since our kids were young, and they have attended CK school district schools since 2005. My purpose in being here tonight is to share my experience working with this parent-led group and working to advocate for our head basketball coach, Brian Tempe, who was recently dismissed, or you could say did not receive a contract renewal for the following next year. A group of parents, and you'll hear more from one of our spokespersons, he'll give a little more detail, but we were really unhappy and disappointed in this decision and felt that it was not a well-informed decision. We worked together to come up with a plan to meet with our school admin, our school principal, school athletic director, and district athletic director to share our disappointment and also advocate for the reinstatement of Brian Tempe as the head basketball coach at La Jolla. He had been coaching basketball at La Jolla for 7 years. He was an outstanding coach, passionate about basketball. His commitment, I haven't seen from any other coach in all the years that my kids have attended school. He connected with the players, specifically my son, who has some other struggles, but he always made an effort to connect with him, to help him build his skill and ability, and also to develop character. So outside of basketball, which I appreciated. Another purpose that I'm here today to talk about is positive that came from these interactions with our school. Chad Solby will be speaking.
You can email us.
I'll email it, but Chad Solby, there's other parents here from this group
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Dominique, and then we have, Mike. So, how you both can come up together? Yeah, but, okay.
Back in October, I came to you distraught. An intoxicated armed and trespass student made his way to CK campus. He entered the school when his brother simply opened the door for him. Trespass student intimidated students and ultimately robbed my son at gunpoint. I stood before you then because no one at the school board or the district office had reached out to us. For emotions, I wanted you to understand the anguish and fury we both felt due to the lack of communication from you. Afterward, I was offered individual meetings with some of you. I followed up in hopes of scheduling meetings and nothing happened. Met with Craig Johnson, the principal of CK High School, multiple times. He's been empathetic and has promised the following security changes at the school. A full security investigation, evaluation of CK's high school to determine potential security breaches. It was my understanding that we would be informed of the outcome once the evaluation had happened and a conclusion was determined. I'm not sure if the evaluation has occurred. If so, we were never informed. We're also told that starting immediately, the students' staff would be issued ID badges. Scanning these badges would be one of the limited ways staff and students get into the school to get to see these badges. We have requested contact info of the parents who were assaulted by these students, as well as having our son's teachers know that he was the one held at gunpoint. These things have not happened. It's been 6 months. School's policy to protect our son has backfired. Your lack of verbal response has allowed the narrative to spread that he is a rat. You have missed the opportunity that we had asked for to civil the school to let everyone know in the school that telling the authorities is the right thing to do. Though the 2 students involved have been suspended from CK for the remainder of the year, you have no guarantee that they will not be allowed back the following year or the year after that. My son has been traumatized and believes he has no support at school. He's been diagnosed with PTSD. His grades have tanked, and he has been terrorized by nightmares. The attackers still make veiled threats on social media about retaliation, and they can pass along threats to other kids at school. What are we doing? My son did the right thing, and now he's the one suffering. The elected officials, from law enforcement to the prosecutor to the school board, are failing our son. We are willing to help, but we need you to engage us. Here's what we need: a meeting with the school board, including hearing records. We need another meeting with Craig Johnston. We need a meeting with Miles' teachers all at the same time. We need to know the other parents who were affected by the assailants. How do we know our school's going to be protected? I heard a lot of talk earlier about our schools safe and they share so what's going on. Do they? Please engage us.
Wanted to make sure we had enough time.
Yeah.
You guys sat up there and talked about culture and all these great things you're doing. And I want you to feel the gravity, the failure to my son. I want you to hold it. I want you to own it. He knew when he reported being held up at gunpoint that the people involved were going to blame him and hold him accountable. He knew that, and he made that decision. He did the hard right thing. And he looked me in my eyes and told me he has seen no changes at school. He does not feel safe. He continues to be threatened through protected free speech, song lyrics that gets put onto the internet, veiled threats put onto social media, kids at school passing along helpful reminders that they ran into so-and-so and they still intend on shooting you. He has experiences, trauma, consistently reliving this over and over. Our country We offer you thoughts and prayers. How can we not fix these problems? How can we not address the bullying? How can we continue to create situations where my kid can't even feel comfortable learning? Nothing. Nothing. Do I need to go buy my kid a bulletproof sweatshirt so he can feel comfortable going to school? He doesn't feel comfortable joining other groups. He's silenced. He's silenced. He's marginalized. So, you received a gift. Your policies and practices and procedures and safety measures were tested. Nobody was physically harmed. Emotionally, my kid is destroyed, continues to be destroyed. Are you going to take advantage of what you've been offered as a gift and fix the solutions? Or are you going to wait until it gets worse the next time and offer people thoughts and prayers?
Thank you.
Thank you. We've got Rick Eckert and then JD Sweet, you're on deck.
I apologize, my subject is not very serious. I'll put yours. So good evening, Rick Eckert, the North Kitsap School Board. But I'm here tonight as your representative of District Area 4 for the nominee, and you WASDA. I wanted to fill you in on development for our elections this year. As you may remember, a year or two ago, the legislature changed the rules in our state and cast responsibility to run elections for the State Board of Education and for the Education Service Districts to WASDA. Now, when they did that, the law passed that those elections had to be done paper. And as you may know, our elections were already electronic. So what needed to happen, what we hope to happen, is not to have to run two different slates. One elections for WASDA, the electronics, one for those on paper. So this legislative session, there was a technical bill fix proposed through to allow us, WASDA, to hold those elections electronically. I'm happy to report that technical bill passed both houses unanimously. And so this year, we will be having all four of our electoral slates, all electronic. That means what you will see is a fully electronic ballot where candidates can go to the WASDA site. They can get all the information on how to file for those positions, how to actually file, do candidate statements, just like we do for our school boards. And then we will get our electronic ballot to our school email addresses, the ones we provide to WASDA. Vote electronic, you'll have candidate statements. You'll see who you're voting for, just like voters who vote for us. And then in addition to that, I'm going to do the plug that I've done through email. And I'll have to ask that we vote. You know, we ask the voters to vote for us, but it's important that we vote for our elections. So that's our area for the WASDA board, the state board, and for the ESD boards. You know, we are traditionally not very good at voting ourselves. We saw paper eyes last year with the electronic ballot for WASDA elections. But we want to get even better this year. Our district area, I remember, we were bronze in the state. We were third highest in the state. I, as your nominating committee rep, want to get us up to at least silver. We're going to push for gold. We should be the best. We need to vote for our own. And then if I have time, I'll throw out there. Our Director Area 4 has an opening on the Federal Relations Network Advisory Committee. One of you is very familiar with the work of that committee. I believe he's the chair. If any of you have any legislative interests working with legislators, and maybe want to volunteer to be our second DA4 rep, Director from Burlington is already doing that. Thank you.
JD. And then on deck is Chad.
Mike and Dominique, I love you guys. Gotcha.
Variation on a theme. The use of the N-word is still rampant in CK secondary schools. Black students and other students feel free to use that word and many other racial and cultural identity slurs without fear of any consequence. Some white students received the N-word pass, a written note provided by a black student that gives the white student permission to use the word. This is not a new phenomenon, nor is it news. Individual teachers have had to deal with this language situation for years. Absent any real district level support, many of these teachers are getting frustrated and worn down. Why? Because district level and building administrators don't know how to address this toxic situation, so they do nothing. When a student or parent says, the N-word is our word, and we can say it, your administrators don't know how to respond, so they don't. The vast majority of your staff are similarly compromised when confronted with the situation. Fear of being accused of being a racist or of disparaging culture or profiling black students shatters the resolve of so many staff, so they say nothing. Some time ago, I asked you, what was your number? Before any decisive action is taken, how many students have to suffer in the oppressive haze of racial and cultural harassment that exists in your secondary schools? Clearly, the answer is that many students must suffer. Many have suffered, you've heard their stories. Many are suffering, you have heard their stories. And many will continue to suffer, and you will eventually hear their stories. Okay, so be it. Asked and answered. You have district level administrators with nice sounding titles: superintendent, assistant superintendent for student achievement and equity, executive director of student support, executive director of secondary teaching and learning, and they are all silent when it comes to the oppressive and toxic haze of racial and cultural harassment students have to navigate. You have a district equity team, and many don't even know they exist, let alone be able to see that their body is doing anything of consequence. And building administrators at the secondary level are afraid to even engage their staffs in the courageous conversations around the toxic atmosphere in their buildings. Administrators do not seem to know the level of staff frustrations, concerns, and fears. When individuals have gone to building administrators, their concerns are dismissed, and/or administrators get defensive and sometimes double down on poorly planned activities or bad decisions. The bottom line is simple. If you, the board, have confidence in district and building leadership, why do you tolerate their inaction on a problem they and you have known existed for years? If you have confidence that they are addressing the toxic atmosphere, why are you still hearing the same stories year after year? Why doesn't anyone know what the plan is? I bet you board members don't know what the plan is.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Chad Salving, and then Jewel Shepherd Sampson.
Good evening. My name is Chad Salby. My wife and I have two kids that attend Kahauya Secondary School. And tonight, my primary and first and foremost goal is really to thank the district and thank the key staff. As Perry Brunson was sharing, our family is part of the Kahauya family that a number of weeks ago were really confused, dismayed, and shocked when Brian Kemke was not reinstated as the head basketball coach. Coach Kemke is a hardworking coach and a good man, and the bottom line is our families trust him with their kids. But I'm happy to report that when we started inquiring and engaging key staff within the district, asking if they'd be open to additional information and other perspectives, we were met with listening ears, respectful dialogue, and a productive pathway to explore if there might be a better decision that was appropriate for the situation. Special shout out to Dr. Prince, Lauren McDaniel, Janiko Harris, the Kahauya AD, and Scott McDaniel, the Kahauya principal. All were very respectful and very responsive. Ultimately, the district staff did make a pivot from their original decision, and we all think that says a lot about your willingness to listen and willingness to reassess. Secondary and small observation during this process. This is not a criticism, merely an observation. We're sharing it in the spirit that more awareness may improve things going forward. And I can speak from personal experience during this journey. The roles and lanes of responsibility between the district AD, high school principal, will be very fuzzy for our community. And I think also for the coaches that get involved with those stakeholders. It's not that there isn't job descriptions, there is, but the nuances of situations that involve all three roles are not clearly understood. More clarity and documentation for everyone going forward will help. We're not advocating or suggesting that what those lanes are, just merely getting clarity and documentation for all involved. And once again, in closing, thank you for listening, reassessing, and reinstating Coach Nepke.
Jewel, and then we have Teresa Jones.
Hello, I'm Jewel with Kitsap Student Union, and I wanted to say thank you for being committed to student success in various areas. Thank you for acknowledging failures and pivoting to find other solutions. The WASA Awards was an opportunity to read and hear about the good in districts all around us. However, we aren't close to being done. There's so much more work to do. As Director Green mentioned, there has to be a shift in culture. Uncomfortable conversations have to happen, and solution-based action has to occur. Thank you for being open to working with community leaders such as myself and having the opportunity to bring solution to some of the things that are going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Teresa, and then we have, looks like Erin Ostrander.
Normally, I follow the proceedings on Zoom in the comfort of my home office, but I felt today it was important to actually show up and talk about an important issue. I spent some time over the past couple of weeks checking out the agendas of past study sessions. So far, I've gone back to 2018. While I fully understand that there are countless topics that require the board's and the administration's attention, I was surprised and a bit dismayed not to see any agenda topics directly related to equity and to the experiences of students of color in the district. And again, that's going back 5 years. I don't know what the process is for deciding what the focus will be for each study session, but it seems to me that issues this critical should have made it to some of the agendas by now. Acknowledging the reality of long-standing history of negative experiences with students of color and discussing possible remedies for this situation should have already risen to that level of importance. Well, the questions in my mind are, how much of a priority are these negative experiences? Is equity truly a driving force in the district's decision-making processes? How will I know if and when all of this becomes a priority? What do I and others expect to see as a proof of change in focus and an understanding of the urgency of these issues here? So suggestion number one, there needs to be a full-time upper administration level equity position in the district. The processes, policies, and practices related to equity are too complex, too far-reaching, too time-consuming, and too important to be accomplished successfully on a fractured part-time basis. Number two, we need to hear equity-related language on a regular basis from the board and the district administration. The more you publicly talk about it, the more we will believe in the general agreement to it. Number three, and on to acknowledgement that what you're doing now in these areas isn't working, may open the door to a renewed mindset and a willingness to change course. Number four, take time to study at least some of the aspects of these issues. For example, discipline and exclusion rates, and equities with respect to student clubs, the lack of people of color in the administration and on the faculty, and the fact that students of color have nowhere to go to get their encouragement and support they need, and the safety and protection they deserve when things go wrong. The time has come to act. Students are suffering. They've waited long enough for security.
Thank you.
Lisa? Okay, we've got Erin and then Carl.
Can you hear me? No, my concerns, please. If you can start speaking. Okay. Hello, my name is Erin Ostrander. I am here tonight to speak to the board and the community to express what it is like to be an active parent and member of the Central Kitsap School District. I've lived in Kitsap County my entire life, attended Seabeck Elementary School, Central Kitsap Junior High, and graduated from Ohio Secondary School, as well as Columbia College. Our family is full of graduates. My grandmother included was in the class of 1953. I was brought up with dedication, passion, and honor to support the CK School District. I'd like it to be known that I have removed five of my children from attending public school within CK. I removed my 10th grader at the request of the remaining 22-23 school year due to harassment, discrimination, targeting, and bullying that it deemed students at CK High School. The removal of our student was his only option to continue his education in a positive environment. Documentation of each interaction has been completed, and after numerous attempts to resolve my concerns, including meetings, phone calls, and personal conversations and emails, CK High School Principal and Assistant Superintendent of Student Achievement and Equality, and the Superintendent, it is my recommendation that each of the board members take a step back and a hard look at those representing and communicating on your behalf. There is a strong lack of communication skills, clear writing, composition, and professionalism within the district. The result of my experience with the personnel at CK High School is beyond embarrassing. I would not want them representing me in a professional manner within the district. It is clear that extensive training of all professionals must be improved, including simple tasks of addressing parents, writing responses, correctly documenting events, and how to send a formal email and how to follow through. Once again, these are simple tasks. My experience reflects uneducated, unprofessional, non-supportive representative staff and administrators. If you consider yourself educated, professional, and worthy of running a school district, please take a look at these things that need improvement, and look at how you represent CK and our educational community. I've done my part as a mother and parent to support my students in their learning path. Because 3 minutes is not long enough to address all my concerns, I will follow up with a more in-depth letter to the community for review. I feel as though the ownership now lies on the shoulders of those in front of me tonight, the board. It is your responsibility to reach out, answer, and address these issues. As the board, you should support our students and want to provide each student with the best educational opportunity. I would also like to know that I am following through with the procedures laid out by the state of Washington RCWs. I'll be requesting an investigation through OSPI, the actions of the staff and administrators of CK High School. I'll also be requesting that OSPI review and investigate the personnel involved in incidents leading to the voluntary removal of my student. It is here in this room that changes the effect over communities and leadership must be identified. Our students deserve more.
Thank you. And Aaron, you'll send us the,
I will send you.
Thank you.
we have Yukari and then we have James Brown.
Thank you so much for receiving our voices and working with us. I'm just a concerned individual parents, and again, I feel like I come here every month and I kind of hesitated to speak out today, but I just wanted to mention that see something, say something. So the reason why I just wanted to point out today is that I saw 2 days ago I saw this crazy guy walking on the street on Pine Street, where it's close to Pinecrest Elementary School, where my daughter attends. And I usually send my daughter there and I don't know. And then I started to see so many, people with dogs, or when you go up on exactly same time, you started to see many same kind of faces. But I never seen the strange guy, and I didn't really care. I was living in Seattle, King County for a long time, so I kind of get too used to seeing many strangers. But he was obviously intoxicated, and he was kind of lifting up his heavy bag, and then screaming and yelling at me while I was driving. But I just didn't want to tell anybody. I just thought maybe just forget about it. But it was close to the Pinecrest Elementary School, so that gives me a little bit worried. So I thought maybe it's good to mention here. And hope there would be, my point is that I hope there would be police patrol outside of the school, time to places for depending on the schools in Kitsap County. Central Kitsap. And that gives us a little bit of, what can I say? More safety and Kitsap is still safe compared to big city like Seattle or like Bellevue. I go to Bellevue sending my kids to Japanese school there every Saturday, and we have like 7 police officers there because that's a private school, so we pay for them. But I know this is about the budgeting here in public school, so. Thank you so much for concern and listening to my voices and working so hard, and thank you so much for everything, working so hard for our children. And I just love our Kitsap County, so I just wanted to say thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
James Bromley, and then, Anne Marie Adams.
I'm the grandparent of a student at Central Kitsap School District. During spring break, I submitted a email to each of the board members, and since I didn't get a response back, I'm gonna read it at this time. Thanks to public records requests filed by Moms for Liberty to each of the school districts in Kitsap County, I now have available to me internal processes and documents used to carry out CKSD School Board Policy 3211. Some of the details of this policy are deeply disturbing to me, and out of an abundance of caution, my granddaughter will not be participating in intramural sports or any open ice trips sponsored by the school district. I know that 3211 comes down from Olympia, specifically from templates generated via WSSDA and OSDI. Even so, you, as a board member, own this policy, because one of the main responsibilities of the school board is to develop policy. As a result, any negative consequences, no matter how unintentional, arising from such a policy, fall on the school board as well as the superintendent who is charged with carrying out policy. According to certain forms I have examined, secrecy from parents regarding alternative student names and preferred pronouns is allowed, if not downright encouraged. Such an action is a direct violation of federal law. I am referring to the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, known as FERPA, which requires local school districts or any other educational organization to release all school records to a student's parents on request. Any state law that contradicts this violates FERPA as well as the U.S. Constitution's supremacy clause, and possibly at least the First and 14th Amendments. Currently, I have a FOIA request filed approximately March 9th with the point of contact for PRR request for the Central Kitsap School District and signed by my daughter. And thus far, I haven't received any response back on the FOIA request. And as far as I know, from talking to my daughter, she has not received any response either. PRR requests are supposed to be responded to within 5 days. Okay. Remember Loudoun County, Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne Marie Adams, and then Gabriella.
So, want to thank the parents for being brave and making this something that the public can see and hear. And it's one of the reasons why my kids are not in buildings anymore. My son has had enough trauma in his life. He doesn't even experience it in the buildings. So my question to you tonight is, how brave are you? Are you semi-bird brave? That is a board director at a Richland school district stood up to do what the parents asked him to do. Are you brave enough to protect all of the students? My guess is, from 2 years, no, you're not. So because of policy 3211 and 5252, our kids are now in the crosshairs of statewide legislation that has the potential of removing children from their parents. House Bill 1469 and Senate Bill 5599 legalize state kidnapping to minors. And some people will say, ooh, that's drastic language, but that is exactly what it does. It gives individuals the opportunity to take a child and put them into foster care or protective care so that they can get medical treatments that they wish to have. Parents might not agree with those decisions because their children are minors and maybe they'd like to wait. I have a friend from high school. Daughters are going through that same thing right now. She wants a voice. This is in King County. And she has had to fight to get the information
what's happening to her daughters in school. For 2 years, parents have been saying, hey, this policy is a bad idea. But no, this board follows Dr. Prince's social and political statements to the T. You follow WASDA to the T. You follow WEA, which I used to sit on their board of directors, to a T. You do not do your job, which is creating policy to protect all. You copy and paste and then move on. Culture? What culture? A culture of bullies antagonizing students and teachers, and you won't change it. You sat up here and talked for 10 minutes each or more about how great Orlando was. But Eric brought up the point. Now what? Now what? At what point? A child has to be traumatized for the rest of his life at gunpoint? And you tell me, oh, we didn't even know what to say when that happened in October. Shame on you. Seriously. Our teachers deserve to be safe. Our students deserve to be safe. Our parents need to be heard, listened, and replied to. I'm the board president. I should be getting emails from you, but I don't get them from Denise. Why? Why aren't you doing that job? That's your job. 2 years. 2 years. Nothing has changed. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gabriella, and then Kathy Bonzo.
In psychology, neurotic behavior is defined by Dr. Fritz Perls as the inability to see the obvious, doing over and over the same thing, expecting the outcome to be different every time. Neurotic patterns are always the base of toxic behaviors and relationships. These are the cornerstones of toxic dominant cultures, and toxic dominant cultures are fertile ground for discrimination and race-based distinction. In school systems, unfortunately, a lot of structures are impregnated with them. Consciously or unconsciously, we lose our children of minority groups to a sea of red tape and unfitting policies that will later amount to a disparity in education and will translate in a gap of opportunities and secure a better life only for one part of the population. You might ask, what are we doing in our school system that are like this? These are a few examples. The school system has no standardized testing in the psychology department for students from other ethnicities. This makes the results of the test they take void for them. And there is a test that is standardized for non-English learners that would make such a difference for them. It's called the Ortiz PB18, and it's only $700. Children, number 2, children that are non-English speakers who enter kindergarten are asked to learn a whole other language, read and write proficiently in the end of the school year, and are evaluated on this with no support in their native language. This is unfair and unjust. I ask you, would you as adults be able to do it in 10 months? This is not asked for other 5-year-olds from overrepresented demographics. Little children from minority groups that are ELS students are pulled from core instruction like math with no one caring. This creates a bigger gap in the learning process, and they are considered slow learners, and that is not true. They're just not supported enough. There is a significant lack of structure and cultural competency to support kids from minority groups in their learning challenges. And the ELS department is overwhelmed, understaffed, and undertrained. There is no accountability for staff and teachers that transgress students of minority groups, and kids are easily marginalized. James Baldwin said, not everything that is faced can be challenged, but nothing can be changed until it's faced. Not everyone has the power to dismantle systems of oppression, but everyone has the power to interrupt them. I think that's what we owe our children at least. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Kathy, and then we have Nicole. Yes.
I'm not a public speaker, so I'll put that out there. And my issues seem really small compared to yours. So, anyway, my name is Kathy Bonzo. My grandmother, Ivy Kitchen Lyman, was a CK high school grad in 1925. My parents both graduated from CK high school. I graduated from Olympic. I have a
son that graduated from Central Kitsap in 2010, and I have a current, high school sophomore. My plan was just to talk about something silly, but I wanted to talk about something he came home with today, when I picked him up. I guess tomorrow at Oregon High School is Empathy Day, and, there's not going to be any, instruction, no classroom instruction whatsoever. And I was concerned about that because there's been no parent communication. I haven't heard anything about it here today. I'm not sure if it's happening district-wide or what's happening. So I just like to understand what exactly is happening, full day of instruction for my kiddo when he should be in class. We're gonna be in school until June 23rd, so, you know, every day is important. Second, why I came here originally is these fancy flyers I get in the mail. I don't know, 3 or 4 times a year, I'm not sure. And they're great, and I read them, and I appreciate them. But they're very expensive, I'm sure, and they go to everybody in the district. I think policy is starting, especially I think, the second semester, where I won't get a report card in the mail from it to me. I have to go find it online. And for myself, I would really prefer to get my kiddo's report card in the mail than this. I would like to see this online. You save a buck and send me a report card. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Kathy, Nicole Daniels, and then we have John Jackson.
Hi, my name is Nicole Daniels, and I, like some spoken, have been raised in this district, with elementary school, Fairview, and Olympic. I currently have 2 students at Highview Secondary School, a 7th grader and a 9th grader. And I'm here to share my gratitude for Coach Tempe. He's gone above and beyond support and grow the Cahalia basketball program for the players of today and into the future. But as a parent, I especially am proud of his commitment to academics, respect for all, hard work, sportsmanship, and accountability. When his contract is not renewed, it sent a shockwave through the team and the community. We've already heard from several of the others from our community group, and with a lot of time, effort, and concern, we did have the opportunity to meet with Principal McDaniel, Ms. Harris, and Ms. McDaniel. I'd like to recognize their willingness to meet with us and to openly listen, went beyond being just present, they were listening, engaging, and most importantly, they took action to reevaluate your decision. It is easy to stick to your decision and use coin phrases, but it takes leadership to take accountability and reconsider decisions with an additional perspective. Thank you for supporting the students of Cahalia and putting action behind your commitment to student voices and putting them first. And just some additional comments from what I heard tonight is I think there is definitely a divide between what administration thinks and feels and perceives and what the parents and the students feel. And I do support continued, we kind of get on the same page. Because oftentimes when we go to administration, we get a different picture. And it would be nice to have an open posture and an open dialogue, an open communication, and not be always shifting off to this person and that person and getting some.
Thank you.
Okay, we have John Jackson.
I'm John Jackson. There's a lot of numbers thrown out there, as far as the budget, things like that, and contracts, and, I have concerns. You talked about, the economy, we don't know what you're, expecting, it doesn't, things like that. Anytime that you are planning for any kind of help, that's not planning. You need to plan for not having it. So when it's not there, you're set up for success. Anytime you're asking for, looking for federal government funds, don't look for that because it might not come. And then you're going to fail. So be prepared and look ahead for not having those funds. Because as I stated 6 months ago, we're spending money like it's, you know, we got our own printing press. So, I think it'd be better for the district for you guys to look at figuring out not having those funds, be able to work through that. Also, answering people's questions, answering people's concerns. You guys are the board. You need to attack the problems. Don't wait around for it, because all it does, bad news doesn't get better with time. So you need to investigate it, get the right people on it, even if it happens to be the Kitsap County Sheriff, you gotta get it on it quick. And then my last point was the term equity. Every time I hear that term, all I hear is I'm raising somebody else up, but then somebody else down, creating division. We need to be talking equality. Because anytime you raise somebody up, you're looking at other people going, well, they're raised up. That means that I'm lower down, I'm less of. So, and that causes bullying, division. Ever since I heard that term, things have gotten worse in the school. And I was a football coach, 15 years. And I never saw it when I first started. But once that term started up, then I started seeing more bullying, more division. Something to consider, look at a 30,000 foot level and, you know, figure out what you need to do. And then ask the parents what would be the right direction. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Now, online? There's no one online. All right. We want to thank everybody for speaking today, and thank you for being brave to stand up to the mic and voice your opinion and give your view. Appreciate it. From us now, what members have before you information on the May 8th study session meeting? Are there any questions or comments? Number of items to follow up with. Definitely, Dr. Prince taking some down that we would definitely follow up for the. And just want to make sure that we just have everything and so forth. All right. Any other following? Anything more other further business? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for attending. Thank you, sir. Give me a sign.
Nice to see you, Rich.